I gotta say this to my white friends. Don't ever be afraid for somebody to call you racist. If it's racist for you to support a president that makes sure we have the lowest black unemployment, to make sure black babies ain't being killed, to make sure there's money invested in our community, well, tell them you're the best racist ever. I mean, and somebody, please do me a favor. Can somebody tell Donald Trump how to be a racist? Because he's not doing a good job.
Yo, Black Lives Matter! Actually, all lives matter. That's racist. Black Lives Matter!
One day later.
That's racist. All lives matter!
There's $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when...
Ooh, that was an... Okay.
You study today's black culture is trash. Ain't nothing positive about black culture. We're not highlighting spelling bee winners. We don't talk about the newest black business that's doing good. When you go on social media, you look at some of the most trending videos and trending topics. It ain't black empowerment. It ain't uplifting black people. When you look at our movies, we ain't got no black heroes. Black culture has black propaganda. Hitler used propaganda to get the Germans to turn on the Jews. We use propaganda for our culture. We propagate pimps, gangsters, killers, womanizers, robbers, deceit, being unfaithful. We got some propaganda, homie, that's brainwashing.
I am a pastor. I'm a man of faith. I have a profound reverence for life. Well, I want to save your life.
I have to respond to this very quick because he told me Black Lives Matter. And if you think about it, Senator, in Atlanta, Georgia, there's more black baby that is aborted than anything. So if Black Lives Matter, why are you not protecting those babies? And instead of aborting those babies, why are you not baptizing those babies?
The Woman King is a modern-day version of G.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. The 1915 silent film was used to promote racism through its false narratives. The Woman King does the same thing. It lies and misappropriates history, leaving the viewer into thinking that the Dahomey tribe eradicated slavery from within their ranks. They did not. Instead, they continued on with impunity. Yet, people still make excuses. Some people refuse to put any blame whatsoever on Africa for their huge part in the slave trade. Now, why is that? Black Lives Matter! Oh, did you see the new Candace Owens film on BLM? Nah, man, you a sellout. Oh, you mean BLM raising nearly $80 million, but almost zero money going to the black community? Building several lavish multi-million-dollar properties in affluent all-white neighborhoods and investing $13 million in Wall Street? You mean that kind of a sellout? Oh, man, Black Lives Matter! Despite Roots' claim that during the heyday of the massive slave trade from West Africa to America, a white man was more likely to develop malaria in Africa than catch slaves. The average life expectancy of a white male in sub-Saharan Africa's interior at the time was less than a year. Men from Europe or the Western Hemisphere arrived on Africa's coast, bought slaves, and fled as quickly as they could. For the slave trade to be possible, they needed massive help from Africans. Because we do not want to be numbers, we will defend the value of the human being. Every single human being, because each of us has a unique genetic code that is unrepeatable. And like it or not, that is sacred. We will defend it. We will defend God, country, and family. For those things that disgust people so much, we will do it to defend our freedom. Because we will never be slaves and simple consumers at the mercy of financial speculators.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is what Reagan later meant by "we are a shining city on a hill." All right, everybody. How are you doing? Merry Christmas, to everybody. Happy New Year coming up. And this is one of the shows that I do every year that I absolutely thoroughly enjoy. And this is simply a wrap up of the year and also celebrating Christmas, my favorite holiday. And so just to set the tone and the mood, I have my eggnog, non-alcoholic for you guys thinking I'm not drinking. And I have my Christmas, or they call it, I guess this is holiday spiced tea, but I'll probably crank up the eggnog here in a little bit as this thing cools down. So what I want you guys to do is relax, sit back, and enjoy. We have a pretty good show lined up, and I'm going to run through the things that I have lined up. And in fact, let's do that right now. But before we do that, I want to let you know that I'm going to be doing 3 giveaways during the broadcast, and we're going to go probably to about 11, and I'll announce these as we go. And what I'm going to do right now is put up, if you want to enter into the giveaways, I'm going to put it up on the screen right here. If I can find my, okay, here it is. So what you need to do is put hashtag Christmas in the chat, and there you will be entered into a drawing. And let me see, when are we going to do the drawing? The first drawing is slated to be somewhere really pretty much about 8 o'clock. And we'll take our first break right around 8 o'clock. And in our first segment, which we have Greg from the Old Glory Games podcast, we haven't done a show in a while because we kind of wrapped up, we called it a season, mainly because of the election and the importance of that. So we didn't do any content prior to a few months ago, but we have some in the can already, and we're planning to do some more in the new year. And we're going to have Greg come on, and we're going to talk about season 2 of the Old Glory Games podcast. And if you guys don't know what the Old Glory Games podcast is, it is a show with me and my buddy, my partner in crime, Greg, who is actually an athlete. His family are athletic. He played semi-pro football, and he has a really good understanding of sports in general. And he and I just love talking about it. And so we thought it would be a good idea to just have a show to talk about the woke culture and the old school nature of sports and how we don't see a lot of those values today. And we're going to talk, I'm sure, about the NBA. We could probably do 10 shows on NBA. It's just ridiculous. So that's going to be the first segment that we're going to do right at about 7:30 or so. In fact, well, I'll let Greg, he's sitting there. I'm going to finish this intro and I'll bring him on and we'll talk a little bit before we get into our Old Glory Games podcast. But I do want to level set, let you guys know what's on tap. So after we do that, we'll do a giveaway and then we'll take a break about 8 o'clock. We'll bring on Nicole, which, by the way, did our pre-recorded setting. And we were talking about the election 2024, how Trump won that, and her expertise as a clinical therapist. She was on this channel for several years. She had a show called The Right Therapist, and she just talked about woke culture from a clinical expert point of view. So we're going to play that, or some of it. That's about 20 to 30 minute segment. And we'll take a break there. We'll do a second giveaway. And then we'll bring Jackie in around 9 o'clock. And we're going to talk about some cool things going into the future with, well, I'll let you know about that. We talked about some things we're going to talk about, but mainly the new year and reflect on Christmases and of the past and where they are now and how things are different. And at some point, I'll talk about Christmas memories and traditions, but that may be tied in as well with Jackie's part. Another quick break. And I'm going to show you throughout the program, I'm going to launch some trivias at you as it relates to American history. So I'll just throw those up. I have about 10 trivia, interesting facts about American culture going all the way back to the founding fathers. And then I'm going to, of course, along the way, answer questions, talk to you guys, interact, drink eggnog, drink tea, and all that good stuff. And then I'm going to do a segment where I am going to talk about 10 Christmas television shows that I watched this season for not for the first time. Some of them I watched before, but I didn't really remember them. But 10 television sitcom shows, and I'm going to rank them, not overall, just from what I've experienced this particular year, in terms of how they relate to family values and how they relate to conservatism. And there's a whole story in all of those in simply how different they are to television of today. And I think you get a kick out of that. So it's jam-packed. It's all Christmas themed or New Year's themed. No Kwanzaa. Sorry, guys. I'm not doing Kwanzaa. So again, let's go to the giveaway section here. If you want to enter into the giveaways, this is what you do. Hit hashtag Christmas anywhere in the comments. And to let you know what we're giving away, you can have your choice of 4 items. And I'm going to put them on the screen as soon as I can cue it up here. Okay, here we go. So here's the giveaways. Let me remove this out of the way. I'm going to remove this, otherwise you won't see it. Let me move this banner out the way. That will be in the way too. So here we go. Here are the giveaways that I'm going to give to anyone who wants to be entered. Again, hit hashtag Christmas in the comments and you will be entered. And we'll do this 3 times throughout the night. So here we go. Get me out the way. So these are 3 books by David Barton of Wall Builders. He's a fantastic resource. That whole site is fantastic. One is called The Separation of Church and States, what the founding fathers really meant with that. America's Godly Heritage. That's an old school goodie that's been around since the 90s. The Second Amendment and Bulletproof. I recommend that one. I read that book. It's fantastic. It's a true story of George Washington as he was coming up in the French Indian War and how he was pretty much impervious to death. And the stories that happen then on these accounts, you will be totally amazed by that. All right, so let's bring Greg on, and we'll do a pre-segment because there's a lot to talk about in terms of the Old Glory Games podcast. And I'll let him talk while I pour myself some eggnog. Greg, are you there? Or okay, cool.
I am. So good evening, Kyle, and good evening, everyone that's joined us.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everyone. How have you been, my friend?
I am doing well. I have my eggnog going. How about yourself?
I hear you. Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm blessed. So no complaints here.
So it's been a while since we've got together, right? I mean, it's been several months.
It's been a little bit, but I don't know if folks are aware that listen to us that we're in contact almost daily, sending things back and forth that are pertinent to what's going on today, whether it be political or whether it be related to sports. So it's not like we haven't heard from one another for months, but as you mentioned previously, everything that was going on with the election and the presidential race and all of that took precedence over talking about sports because we just felt like the focus should be there because this past election was so critical to our country and the country. So we'll get back into the swing of things at the beginning of the new year, but certainly enjoyed the past year that we had talking about sports from an old school conservative point of view.
Definitely. And let me say this, guys, make sure you put a hashtag on that Christmas. Otherwise, it won't register. It's an automatic registration. So, Jackie, put a hashtag on that. So, yeah. So, Greg, what are you most excited about in terms of the upcoming year, in terms of sports? Because we're seeing a little bit of a turn away from this DEI woke mindset, but not completely.
Yeah, so I think it will be an interesting year because of what you just said. And I think the tone of the nation was exemplified in who was elected president. And you've seen on down the line where people are getting fed up with a certain kind of mentality, which is basically trickling down all the way to our sports. So I think you and I both know that unfortunately, political agendas and social agendas have been interwoven into the fabric of sports. And people are, whether it be sports or going to a movie or watching a play or performance, people just want to enjoy that particular mode of entertainment without being lectured. And I think, you know, I think our society in general view that type of activity as an escape from all the hustle and bustle and the realities of everyday life. So to have to deal with those sorts of things when you just want to relax and watch a game is very frustrating. But I think in the year coming up, I'm pretty sure we'll continue to look at things that we looked at last year. LeBron James is the gift that keeps on giving. We could just do a show on him. I mean, the content is limitless when it comes to him. Caitlin Clark, I'm sure we'll talk about her again. She's a phenomenon, and not just across women's sports, but I think sports in general. And I think she's dipping her toe into the water as far as social agendas and politics. I'll not say any more than that, but with her fame comes a lot of expectations that she's going to have to learn how to handle. We talked about NIL and the transfer portal. I had no idea that it would just explode so quickly, but it has changed the landscape of college sports, and it's just made such a tremendous impact, whether for good or for bad. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that some more as well. I think in general, we'll likely also be talking about basically the erosion of quality in play for various sports. The product for multiple leagues are just very, very bad. And you're seeing a reflection of that in a decrease in ratings, a decrease in just overall interest. And these leagues are going to have to address it sooner or later. They can chalk it up to, oh, well, there's so many different platforms you can watch these games now. That's why the games on these major networks aren't being viewed as much. Come on, you and I, neither one of us believe that there's a deeper core reason as to why people are turned off by the sports they see today, not just the political and social overtones, but just the poor quality of the product that we're seeing on the court and on the field. We'll probably get into some different sports in 2025. We dabbled in boxing and tennis. I think we'll have an episode upcoming next year where we talk about golf, pro wrestling.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. So, but I can see us also talking about some other sports as well. We talked about NASCAR some. MMA is a fast growing sport that I'm sure we'll probably talk about at some point. But I think in general, as sports relates to everyday life and how much it's changed over the years, and what that's a reflection of. Is that a reflection of us? Is that a reflection of our society? Uh, what is this coming from? So I know we'll get into that more as well. To me, that's the foundation of our show. Looking at how sports and values used to be when we were kids as opposed to what they are today, and how it just seems like even in college, it's all about making money and less about competing and winning and playing the games the right way. So we won't have a lack of topics to discuss for sure. And I'm excited about the year coming up in 2025.
Absolutely great. You know what, Greg? I think we should do a show on your suggestions in terms of how to fix the NBA. I mean, do you remember what you put? I mean, you put out a lot there, and I thought that was just absolutely fantastic. I mean, I took it to one level, but you took it to level 12, and you just broke out so many different things that the NBA, if they implemented this, it would rival potentially the NFL, because the NFL is kind of doing some things too that's kind of bringing down the product. I think NFL at its best, personally, will always be better than NBA at its best. Just my preference. I like both sports. But if the NBA implemented the things that you put in place in our private chat, I mean, Greg, it would be a fantastic NBA. And I mean, I might not remember that. I still have it. But kudos to you on that. I'm not going to release it until we talk about it. But do you remember
make them wait for
it? I'm sorry?
I said make them wait for it.
Yeah, make him wait for it. Yeah, I definitely hyped that up for him, but it's really fantastic. So another thing I'll mention quickly, I'll let you comment on anything I just said there, was the NIL has been such a disappointment, because it's become not only the wild, wild west, but it's just become worse than pro football almost. And it's so unfair because the rules are not consistent across state borders. And to me, it's a lot worse in terms of fairness for the players. And we had a show on the NIL and also the transfer portal. We probably should split those two out. But the NIL in and of itself is a utter disaster.
Yep.
So anything you want to elaborate more on? I know you brought those up already, but do you want to comment or anything on that? Or
Sure. So first of all, thank you for your kudos on proposals on how to fix the NBA. We'll probably do a show on that because there's a lot to fix for sure. But to me, it's a lack of leadership, if nothing else. That's why the NBA is the way it is. So it starts at the top. So if they had a strong leader like David Stern, I don't think you would see what you're seeing now. Regarding NIL and the transfer portal, even though they are intertwined, there's so much to unpack with both. So we would probably have to do a separate show to adequately cover the two. NIL, I understand the origins of it. You certainly don't want these kids to be exploited as far as making money off of their name, image, and likeness, which is what NIL stands for. But it has just gotten out of control, in my opinion, when you've got these kids making demands as far as where they're potentially going to play. Oh, well, I demand so much playing time. I demand this. I demand that. Otherwise, I'm not going to agree to play at your school. And it's like, well, that basically undermines the foundation of sports. Sports is about competing. Sports is about giving it 110%. Sports is about putting team before yourself. The NIL basically encourages a lot of selfishness on these players' parts. And a lot of people will argue that these players were spoiled enough as it was. And now it's just Mach 10 as far as what we're seeing now with the benefits and the preferential treatment of these players. So it's looking more and more like pro sports every day. And that, again, that goes back to, is there a such thing as amateur athletes anymore? Not in college football and basketball. These kids are getting paid, and they're allowed to just move freely between schools each and every year. And from what I've seen, there's really no limit. You can move around as much as you want, as long as you have eligibility left. And again, that undermines the concept of having a cohesive team that's been together a few years and that can compete for championships year after year. The turnover for these major college teams are incredible. And I think that's why you see all of these old school coaches saying, you know what, I can't deal with this. That's basically, I think the latest example of that was Tony Bennett, who abruptly quit as head coach of the Virginia Cavaliers. And he all but said so. He is not the man to lead the program through the climate we see today in college basketball. So these old school guys are like, look, I'm not dealing with this, because basically college sports is slowly giving more control to the players than the schools and the coaches have. And that's an imbalance that would just be very, very harmful to college athletics as a whole. And now that, the horse has been let out of the barn, I don't know that we're going to be able to go back to the way things were. So I know we'll have a lot more conversations about those two topics, but it's disheartening to me because I grew up watching college sports, and all the ideals of, these kids are students first and then athletes, and it's all about team, and it's all about getting a degree and all of those things. Yeah, I'm not saying kids don't prioritize those things, but I mean, it just looks like these guys are prioritizing making as much money as you possibly can, and there's certainly a place for that. But again, the ideals of college athletics in its purest form, they're getting undermined, and that's sad to watch. So I know we'll talk a lot more about that, but yeah, right off the top of my head, those are my thoughts on those two topics.
I have a quick question, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this, because we have not talked about this even privately, but you are a Carolina Tar Heels fan, correct?
Yes.
So you know where I'm going to ask next, right?
Yeah.
So let me do a lead in here.
Mm-hmm.
So Belichick is coming to North Carolina, but Saban left Alabama for the reasons, I think, and I know you're a Carolina fan, I hope I'm wrong, but I think the same reasons that Saban left, I think it's going to be the same reasons why Belichick is not going to be successful if things stay the way they are. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there is potential for that happening. Belichick is already 73 years old, so he can't be in it for the long haul. I mean, that's just, pretty obvious. But I think what Belichick is looking to do here, and this is some of the things that I've heard, I believe his son is going to be on the staff. So that's probably one reason why he wanted this opportunity to set his son up to coach after he leaves. Some of the other things, Belichick is a competitive guy. He wants to coach. And I think this is a way to basically thumb his nose at all of the NFL teams that were looking for coaches this past offseason and passed on him.
Oh, yeah.
Like somehow the game has passed old Bill by.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think now he has something to prove, which is kind of odd to say after all of the championships and accolades he's won and earned. But I think this is an opportunity for him to set up a new way of coaching college football, to more or less run it like an NFL program. And I think I've seen comments alluding to that. I think he's going to run this similar to how he ran it in New England. I know he's going to have basically full autonomy and control. And just the past few days, it's amazing to see all of the transfers that Carolina is getting. Not only the kids that entered the portal that played for the Tar Heels this past season that said, you know what, I'm going to stick around, but all of these different guys from all of these different schools that want to come to Carolina. Is it because Carolina has a rich tradition in college football? No. It's because Bill Belichick is there. And guess what? He is, I think, the second winningest coach in NFL history. And he knows how the NFL works. And who better to give me a realistic shot at the NFL than Bill Belichick? So from that perspective, Carolina is going to benefit from his being there. I think Belichick, again, he's looking to prove a point. He's looking to prove that, you know, I've still got it. I can still coach. I can turn this program around and instill a tradition and attitude of winning, which, quite frankly, Carolina football hasn't had in, you know, consistently in decades. And I can also, you know, revolutionize in a way the way college football programs are run. So I think he's got a major opportunity to do this. Carolina's got nothing to lose. Going along with this experiment. There's nowhere to go but up, as far as I'm concerned. I know some Carolina fans were skeptical about this hire. I'm like, look, if the man can instill discipline and a winning attitude and playing the game the right way, I'm all for it because Carolina football has been lacking that the entire second tenure of Mac Brown. And watching them week after week make the same mistakes and let down, you know, finding all kinds of different ways to lose and just going in there with a lackadaisical, I don't care if we win or lose attitude. I mean, it's selling themselves short as players, selling the school short, and selling fans short. So I think Belichick, just the name power alone has changed things, and he's not even on the sidelines yet. So I think this will be good. But, you know, to your question, how long is Belichick going to put up with it? I think he'll stick it out at least a few years, unless it just gets so ridiculous that he's like, you know what, this isn't worth it. I'm going to go retire someplace. But I think he will stick it out a few years, get some things changed around, and hand it off to his son. But it's a win-win for him. He's getting a boatload of money to go coach college football. And actually his dad coached at Carolina, I think like back in the 50s or something.
Oh, wow.
So he does have a tie to the school. And, you know, Belichick has the type of control and autonomy that he could not get when he was interviewing for jobs in the NFL this past year. So, yeah, he's going to do it his way. Whether it works or not, it remains to be seen. But judging from the transfers and the talent he's getting in there, Carolina's going to be something to reckon with, for sure. So looking forward to see how that works out. But I think the sky's the limit for that situation and that setup for him.
Yeah, I just brought it up only because I hadn't done much research on it, but seeing Nick Saban leave for the reasons why I suspect he left because of the prima donnas and the transfer portal, the NIL, all that stuff. I just felt that thinking I know how Belichick is in terms of how he coached. He was under Parcells, right? Or he was under, was it Parcells, or was it?
Yeah, he was under Parcells, I think, because he was, what was he? Special teams coach or something for the Giants. There's a clip of Lawrence Taylor talking about Belichick. So I think, he coached under Parcells, but I think it's going to be different because I think Saban got disillusioned with the way things are now because kids didn't come to him asking, how can you make me better? How can you make me a better player? How can you make me a better young man? How can you help me grow? All they want to know is how much money I can make. Well, Bill Belichick, he came from that environment. He's coming from the pro game. So he knows all about dealing with guys that, are in it for the money, make a lot of money, and have that mentality. So he'll be right at home with that kind of mentality because he's more of an NFL guy, whereas Saban was more of a college guy, even though he coached for the Dolphins. But that's where the differences are, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, he'll be able to handle that. And if he has the autonomy that he needs, then you're right. And if he stays at least 4 years, he'll get the old players flushed out and he can get his own players in. His own personality will be infused in the roster. And he has that OG mentality, that OG status, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like Deion Sanders, when he went to Colorado, he had that OG status. So that's going to carry him at least for a while until proven otherwise. And I think he could be very successful. I was just more concerned about, the prima donna say, yo, coach, what's up? Hey, coach, what's up, man? Oh, you know what? Practice? Come on, coach. You serious? Come on. If I don't practice today, I'm going to go give me an NIL deal tomorrow. That kind of thing. So I'm not sure if he wants to be part of that, but
well, I think
I mean, that's all. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. So I was just going to say, do you remember in New England when New England would get these guys to come to their team that were viewed as prima donnas, like Randy Moss and Chad Johnson or Ocho Cinco, whatever he's calling himself today.
Right.
And guys like that.
Right.
So from what I've read and from what I've heard, Randy Moss was willing to basically assimilate to the culture of New England, where it was a team first, win first mentality. You're not going to come in here and do your own thing. You're going to do what you're asked to do. Learn the playbook, be on time, play with the right attitude. And Randy Moss was able to do that, I'm sure, much to the surprise of a few people. But Chad Johnson was not able to do that, and he refused to do that. He didn't want to learn the playbook. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to do that. And guess what? His tenure in New England was brief.
I never knew he was there.
Yeah. So I think Belichick will maintain that same mentality at Carolina. And he'll just basically said, look, guys, if you don't want to do things my way, there's the portal, get in it and fly away. He's not going to put up with kids, not even grown men, kids telling him what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. That's not going to work there because he has enough pull and enough weight behind his name and his reputation that he's going to do that. And the school is going to back him up, not back up the players. The school is going to be behind Belichick. So if you think you're hot stuff and you think you're the best player in the country and you're not going to do what he says do, yeah, you'll be out of there in a hurry and you'll find out who runs things around there. It's not the players, it's going to be Belichick. So, yeah, I think that's another reason why this is going to be different.
Yeah, I'm looking at the recruiting class. It's pretty big coming in. 2005. I can only imagine 2026 because right now the 25 has already done. Right. That's because it used to be signing day was the second week of February, but now it's like early signing. So it's not like it was the old days where you had to wait till February to factor your stuff in. But I'm sure he's going to get some good players coming in there because Carolina's a beautiful campus. And,
yeah, it is.
It's a good place to be, North Carolina in general. So, well, cool. That's awesome. So let me just go over some things here. People are coming in. So we are doing a giveaway. If you want to put hashtag Christmas, put the hashtag in there, hashtag Christmas into the comments, you'll be entered into a drawing. And that drawing is one of 4 books that I'm going to have set up for you guys. I'll let you know what those are in a minute here. But we'll do that. And then along the way, we will actually be doing other stuff too, like this trivia question we have here. Let me just read it out real quickly. So December 25th, 1776, George Washington crossed the Delaware River. I'm sure many of you know this. He led a surprise attack on Trenton, turning the tide of the Revolutionary War. It's a much bigger deal than that, but he did it on Christmas Day. Pretty savage, Greg. I mean, come on, man. If he didn't make that particular campaign, then the war would have been over. He only had about 4,000 active troops who were actually able to to fight. But had he lost that, there would not have been a country. And in fact, he should have lost that because Raleigh, who was in charge of the Trenton forces over there in Jersey, actually had a note saying, yeah, you're about to be attacked. You should garden up your forces because you're going to get attacked tonight. But he never read it. And the rest is history. So, Greg, any comments on that historical thing on Christmas Day back in 1776? In fact, we're about to celebrate a 250th anniversary in a couple years here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can certainly remember, the year of the bicentennial back in 1976. And, just that entire year, it was all about that particular celebration. So, yeah, this is going to be memorable. I actually lived in Trenton when I was a little kid. So I can certainly understand the importance of that particular event. And of course, you see the paintings and whatnot of Washington, leading his men, and it's all, snowy and cold, but the image of him looking so stoic, leading them across. I mean, it's an awesome image. So you can kind of, link that up with what's going on today as far as Donald Trump bravely leading the country into, a new phase and a new opportunity to be as, great as we once were. So, not to try to say, Donald Trump is as great as George Washington or anything else like that. I don't want to start that debate, but I think in terms of being the leader that he is and being as brave as he is, all of the obstacles that he had to overcome to get where he is now. Yeah, there's the iconic picture. I mean, that's just awesome.
That's Trumbull.
With the American flag flying there. I mean, one of the to me most iconic images that you'll ever find. So I think it's fitting that it happened on Christmas and fitting that it had such an impactful meaning and led to such an impactful outcome as far as our country is concerned, and what it meant as far as how we would move forward as a nation. But just super. And like anytime I think about George Washington crossing the Delaware, that is the image I think about. And again, you can kind of correlate, the symbolism of all of the challenges that he met during that point, and all of the challenges that, Donald Trump had to deal with and is dealing with today to lead the nation into hopefully a much better, more peaceful, and much more prosperous place.
Well said. Actually, I said New Jersey. I meant to say Delaware. And by the way, that scene's not very accurate. He wasn't probably standing up in the boat, but it is it's an amazing picture from the symbolism. I think it's accurate in the terms of its veracity, in terms of its brashness, because it was all or nothing. The password for the night was victory or death. George Washington and those guys, King George III said, if you guys go forth with what you're doing, we will basically take, and this is probably going to be censored off of YouTube here, but essentially take your entrails, rip them out, and we're going to set them afire while you're watching. That was what King George said these guys were going to be looking at, and then they're going to hang them. And so these guys, and George Washington was one of the richest men in Virginia. So there's a lot of stories there. You mentioned Donald Trump. There's a lot of parallels there. And I said before, there were 3 times, now there's 4 times in our history where these moments happen that if it turned the other way, we no longer have a country. One is Delaware crossing. Second, it's the Civil War. Gettysburg, you can take Vicksburg, one of those 2 battles as a turning point. It's fine. And World War II goes without saying, the Eastern and the Western in terms of, the Pacific versus the Allied Normandy front, and November 5th. I can say that now because we're already past that now. I think had we lost the election November 5th, I think with Kamala coming on board, with her Marxist mentality, her dad being a staunch Marxist, with the media not caring, doing anything they want to do, I think we would have been in serious trouble. I think we would have ceased to be a country. We would have been something totally different. In 4 years, we would have been Canada or worse. We would have been what Great Britain is going through right now, which is just horrible. So as we wrap up this segment, Greg, I just want to give you the last word here. Tell me anything you want to talk about, Chris, what you're excited for, what you're getting for Christmas, what you're expecting from your family, or what you want to do next year, or anything you want to talk about, or anything I mentioned before about the history of this country.
Sure. So again, thank you for the opportunity. This past year has been fantastic as far as what we've talked about on our Old Glory Games podcast. Again, I'm truly thankful and blessed to live in the greatest country in the world. And we have our issues, and we're not perfect, but I would not want to live anywhere else but here. And I'm certainly thankful for, what happened back on November 5th. Again, it was such a critical time in our history for our nation as far as where we go from here. I'm looking forward to spending time with my family during Christmas. And, to me, that's the best present, be able to spend time with them and relax and enjoy some time, away from work and just, focus on, one, the true reason for the season, the birth of Christ. And, Jesus is the most awesome and perfect gift ever. And, we should not overlook that or forget to, focus and take time to be truly thankful for that. The year coming up, I'm excited. I'm excited for our show and excited for our country as well. But again, it's just been super all the way around. Of course, in all of our lives, we have challenges and roadblocks. But to me, keeping your eyes on God and continuing to move forward and trust in Him, that's what we need to do. So also, if anybody that's listening has any questions for us, feel free to put them in the chat. I don't know if anybody had any questions in particular for me as far as sports or just in general, but you can just put them in the chat and either, we can answer them now or offline or whatever works. But yeah, again, thank you for the opportunity to share about sports and sometimes life, in general, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sports, they're important, but there are a whole lot of other things that are more important and more critical to our everyday lives. And certainly, God Almighty is at the very top of that list. And, our family is under that. So yeah, we just need to make sure we focus on the right things, but certainly, being able to take time out and talk about sports and other things going on in our world today is a blessing in itself. So thank you again, and looking forward to the new year.
Yeah. So when do you think we should kick off the first show? We have some already in the can already. We can really do it at any point in time. You want to just do it sometime in January, you think? What do you think?
Works for me.
Yeah. Let's look for this second week of January. I think you can expect we'll probably do the wrestling one. That would be a good one. And then we'll kick into some more content, or maybe we do a live show, answer questions again. I don't know. Maybe we do a kickoff with a live show. Let's do that first. And then we do I think that's probably be better. That way we get the current events, and then we can deal with Caitlin Clark, the NIL at a high level, and do with the NBA and your favorite person in the world, LeBron James.
Fantastic.
Person, of course. But okay, we'll leave it there.
Good deal.
All right, Greg. As this segment is over, this is Greg from the Old Glory Games podcast. And of course, my name is Kyle. And everyone else, I want you guys to understand that if you put #Christmas in the comments, we will be doing a drawing very soon. And there's not too many, so you have a good chance of winning right now. So we're going to do it in about 3 to 4 minutes. And the drawing of the actual prizes are, let me pull them up for you. They're going to be 4 books from David Barton, who is with Wall Builders. One's called Separation of Church and State. The other one is called Our Godly Heritage. That's an oldie but goodie. It's been around a long time. And one's called The Second Amendment, what the founders really meant. And my favorite, I read this, it's called Bulletproof. It's about George Washington. We just talked about him. And it tells this true story of him as a lieutenant colonel, I believe, in the French and Indian War. And the fact that he was able to go through that particular war and not get a single scratch on him. I'll leave it there. It's obviously God ordained that he survived that, and we'll just leave it there. But it's fantastic content there. So again, #Christmas, and we were doing this probably in about, let's say, 8:03. And what I'm also going to do here, I'm going to bring up the next trivia question here. We have one already we've done, and let's do another one. Let's do the second trivia question here and talk about it. Trivia question 2 is the Treaty of Ghent, ending the War of 1812, was signed on Christmas Eve, 1814, marking a moment of peace and American resilience. And so, just a real quick story about the War of 1812. It was essentially a 2-year war where President Madison who was, I believe he was the fourth president. Is that right? I think he was president. Yeah, he was the fourth president. He was concerned about British ships who were in war coming and taking American ships, civilian ships, and other ships, taking the crew, imprisoning them, and then putting them into their own navy. And that wasn't good. And it was happening for a long time. Madison said, this is ridiculous. Great Britain shouldn't be doing this. He wanted to declare war because our sovereignty as a nation is being threatened, even though America was not in the position to wage a war. You know, it had been, 1812, so it had been 40 years since the Revolutionary War. And even then, they didn't really have a navy. Even when you consider John Paul Jones, they still really didn't have a navy to speak of, but they fought anyway. And the U.S. Capitol was burned. The White House was burned, partly in a retaliation for us going up to Canada early in the war and burning Canada. So it was just a crazy war. It ended with Andrew Jackson having a big battle in New Orleans, even though the war had already been settled, but he became a hero from that, nevertheless. And then the other thing that came out of that war is the Star Spangled Banner, Francis Scott Key in Baltimore. So the war, more or less a misnomer, but it did solidify us as a nation in the world, and that we had a standing in the world as a country. We're no longer just a fledgling. We were actually recognized by everybody, and that was very important. And so this Treaty of Ghent was signed on Christmas Eve. So interesting tidbit there. All right, so now let's get to let me load this up here, and I'm going to pull up let me do it over here. We're going to do the giveaway now, if I can find it. All right. Thought I already had it up. Guess I didn't. All right, I got it up. So let's do this. All right, here we go. So we only have 2 entries, so you have a 50-50 chance of winning this. So we're going to draw right now. Ooh, Tracy Craven is the winner of our first giveaway. Congratulations there. And again, I'll put the prizes up on the screen here in a second. But Tracy, if you will, the way you can do this is you can put a private chat in here for information, or you can actually email me, and I'll put that in the private chat here so you guys can see that. But if you just email me at, let's say, giveaway@theconservativetake.com, giveaway@theconservativetake.com, give me which book you want, one of the 4, and of course your shipping address where you want it to be delivered. It's going to be coming to you from Amazon. So I'll have that information here in shortly. I'll put it up on a banner so you can do that. All right. So with that being said, congratulations, Tracy. And at this point in time, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we're going to go into our next segment. We're going to talk about the election, and we're going to go over and watch a video recorded with me and Nicole talking about the takeaways from the election and the impact that all of the stress, all of the anxiety, all of the fears and angst that most of us conservatives have had over these past 8 years dealing with so-called, it's not an insurrection, but you know what I'm talking about, what they call it, insurrection, a election that was bogus, let's just call it that, and assassination attempts, indictments, impeachments, all this is plural, convictions, all bogus, all ridiculous, but all stressful. And so we're talking about that in this particular video, and as it relates to the new year as well. So I'm going to cue this up, and we're going to take a quick break. And let me see if there's any questions here in the comments. You're welcome, Tracy. You're welcome. Yes, email me. In fact, let me just do it right here. I'm going to do it right here so you guys can see it. And you can keep doing hashtag Christmas in the chats here. I believe it will keep continuing. I don't think you can win twice, but we won't let people win twice. But keep putting the hashtag Christmas into the comments. It won't work in the private chat. You have to put it into the comments. In the private, it won't register. So put it into the comments, hashtag Christmas, and we'll do a next drawing in about an hour or so. And looking forward to that. All right. So everybody, just let me cue up the break here, and I will see you in about 5 minutes. If I can find my, I didn't actually do that yet. So let me, yeah, I'll just use this guy here. We'll do it in 4 minutes. We'll be back on the break in 4 minutes. See you then. All right, everybody, we're back. This is segment 2 of the Christmas second annual virtual extravaganza. Basically, me having fun. I just finished 2 cups of eggnog and about to kind of lay off of that. But so now about to get into some of this tea here. And we're going to go into this next segment where I'm going to play for you a recording that me and Nicole had just this week in terms of the election and wrapping it up and putting a bow on it in terms of how it relates to us, insanity, and all that. Nicole is a clinical therapist, licensed therapist. She's been on this channel many times, and she's my go-to person when it comes to unpacking a lot of this craziness that we see all the time. So I'm going to be on here as well, and I'm going to be answering questions, and I'm going to be putting up trivia questions on here. I may be breaking in. It's a pretty long segment. I may not cover the whole thing. I'll make it available at some point, but if it gets to the point where I feel like it's kind of lagging in terms of interest, I will go ahead and pull it back, but we'll go for at least 20 minutes here, maybe 30. And again, I'll be interacting, maybe stopping, commenting, doing some trivia, maybe showing some other things too, whatever I decide to do. And Greg, if you want to pop on and talk about anything, just leave me a note privately on the chat here, and I will pull you in as well. Or anyone else who's coming here who has access to this on my team. Jackie as well. I know you're coming on at 9 o'clock, but if you want to jump on here as well, any point we can do this any way we like. All right, so let's get started. This is Nicole, myself, from the 17th of this month, talking about the election. And here we go. Everybody, welcome to the Conservative Take. My name is Kyle, and as you can see, we have Nicole here. But what you may also notice is that we're now in a different sort of studio. It's the same studio, just different. This is Studio B. And so it's a different setting, but I think Nicole is kind of cool, right? The backdrop of the wood cabin with the tree. And what do you think?
Love it. Rustic. Yes. And getting on that homesteading vibe. I'm digging it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see what hat I'm wearing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. And this is a recorded segment for our live stream we're going to do soon. And Nicole was able to give us her time. And we're going to talk about the election, but also talk about how it plays into the new year and how we can kind of exhale, right? I mean, what do you think, Nicole? I mean, what do you think about the election and just the aspect?
Exactly. I think the election itself was almost an indictment, right, on how we've been holding our breath for the last 4 years. And with everything I say that we have gone through, not only as conservatives, but as a populace, watching what has gone on with this country in terms of social policy, political policy, foreign policy, right? Economic policy. It's been a head shaker for most people, I think. And when it came down to election time, even a lot of more liberal or left-leaning folks were not pleased with the economy. That was a huge metric, and people were weighing in. So I don't know that the left and more liberal folks were willing to say that this particular administration just tanked us financially, but they certainly felt it. So, to say that we held our breath going into this election was an understatement. And now I think we can relax a little bit, and we're already seeing the positive from, this mandate that came forth with this election. The economy, the stock market has responded positively. I think our adversaries are everybody's starting to fall in line from a foreign policy standpoint. And there's a general sense of optimism that things are going to get better. And I think that's palpable. I think that's palpable just in general. And a lot of the pundits that I watch and pay attention to are real excited about what's coming. And so I feel good about it. I feel really good about it.
I do too. And if we talk about the mandate, you're referring to essentially the fact that President Trump won, or President-elect Trump, actually both, right? He's a president, you know,
Yes.
in respect,
Yeah.
he's president-elect for this next term, which is really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But he got a mandate, like you said. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
won the popular vote by 1.5 million, 1.8 million
Mm-hmm.
point eight votes, which is really, really incredible. He flipped put it this way, every single state in the country went right in some measure. Even Washington and even Utah, which we thought initially wasn't doing that, but every single county and every single state went right towards Trump. And California, I think 10 counties went to Trump as well, which was number
Mm-hmm.
4. And New Jersey was within 8 points. I mean, New York was within like 11, somewhere in there. I mean, I think it sent a shockwave across the woke narrative culture, and I think a lot of them are backtracking there. And so, let me question for you, Nicole. How do you think that sort of slam dunk election helps us in terms of relationships with friends and even reporting to people saying, hey, you know, we were right, you know. And in fact, just today, they just within the past hour, police arrested some people in Aurora, Colorado, the same gang, the same hotel or apartment complex. Some person was actually tied up and gagged. One was actually stabbed. And so that's Trump vindicated there as well. So, I mean, and these kind of stories are going on and on and on. So my question to you, Nicole, is we are dealing with our family members and people like that. How do we sort of say, I told you so without saying I told you so, but still sort of allowing them to save face a little bit as well?
That is a tightrope to walk. No question. No question. And while nobody will fault, I as a therapist, I won't fault people for outreach and goodwill and charity and helping people. However, when those people don't have our best interests at heart, or if they are indeed, psychologically disturbed individuals, i.e., gang activity that's antisocial, and we've got some, some murderers, child predators. All of these are diagnosable disorders in these folks, and with notable criminality. And so when these folks come across and start committing crimes, then all bets are off as far as our charitable giving. So, it's hard to say, I told you so, without telling you, I told you so. And the only, I think, real palatable argument has been one of, well, if you're so charitable, then why don't you open up your home to these individuals? And oddly enough, they won't do that, right? Our left-leaning brethren are like, oh, well, no, I'll give them a coat or I'll give them a handout. But, as far as actually taking, more responsibility or more active role, we're not seeing a whole lot of that. I would, there's no sense in saying I told you so. To folks. And so I'm going to get into the weeds here a little bit.
Okay, sure.
But with folks who have, again, they're platitudinal ideals, as in these are human beings and they need help, and they do. Nobody's denying that they do. However, it's where do you begin with some of these folks? And when it comes to psychopathy, when it comes to, certain diagnosable mental health issues, these are conditions that are not treatable by handouts. There's some serious therapy. There are some serious mental deficits at play here that we're not going to solve. And so all this to say, if we're, around the kitchen table, as a conservative, my sense is, that's really admirable. And two things can be true at once, right? It's really admirable that we want to help these folks, and at what cost? That is the fundamental question. At what costs. And so even if I were at the kitchen table, I'd be, man, I wonder what that would look like. Yeah, if I've got an influx of non-Spanish speaking kindergartners in a school, wow, I wonder what that does to all of the other kids who are there. And just let it sit. Let it sit. If this is, yes, it begins the conversation. However, right, it's like you're saying it without saying it. And I would tread lightly. The holidays is not the time to settle our social issues, nor is it the time to get in the weeds about it either. This is something I tiptoe lightly around with my family members. Even we are on polar opposite sides of the issues. We ignore it altogether, to be honest with you. We just don't talk about it. As much as I love to talk about it and love to engage in the issues and have civil discourse and, debate, it never seems to work out well. And the reason I say this, and in my experience, it has been that more left-leaning people tend to take my enthusiasm as a personal attack. All right. And which it's not. I'm attacking the issues. I wish things weren't the way that they were. But once that is taken as a personal attack, then all bets are off, right? Then, the conversation is broken down and it becomes character assassination. And I'm not willing to die on that hill for my family members. Wow. They're my family members first, and the issues are the issues. The issues will still be there tomorrow. The issues are going to take on a mind of and a life of their own and exist outside of the family dynamic. So let's stick within the family dynamic. Let's just kind of pigeonhole ourselves into the holiday and try to have a nice time. Sometimes my Southern sensibility says about the left and the platitudinal, kind of idealism. That's cute. That's bless their heart. That's so sweet. And I wish it were so simple. I do. I wish it were so simple that, all we need to do is, fill in the blank and we wouldn't have this. It's easy to armchair quarterback and make those sorts of assumptions about all we need to do. And some of these sanctuary cities, I think they thought all we need to do is just clothe and house them and give them a cell phone, and they'll go right into the workforce and everything will be okay. New York is in chaos. There are lots of areas that are in complete chaos right now because of the all we need to do mentality. And I think what this last 4 years has taught us is that the all we need to do mentality is oversimplified and ignores the reality of what the consequences are for what we've done in terms of policy over this last administration. There's no question to me that on several levels that this administration will go down as the worst in history for where we were and where we are now. And so as far as that has a bearing on our Christmas conversations with family and things like that, I don't think we need to say much. I really don't. We don't need to say much. It on its face, the evidence is clear as to where we are, what happened, and I think there's more to come. That's the other thing, is that there are going to be investigations. There are going to be revelations. There are going to be some whistleblowers coming forward with some stuff over the last 4 years. We haven't even seen it yet. And so just put a pin in your opinions, put a pin in what you think is coming, and let it all come out. Because I think it's starting to unravel.
Sorry about that. I was muted. All right. So let me start over. So that was Nicole Kaufman, and that was her assessment of the election. That conversation went on for about another, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. I'll post it online right after this podcast completes, and you can check it out. But it's really good and good information, particularly after this election, how things are so volatile in terms of relationships. And the left, I mean, came out and said, I think it was Joy Reid or had someone on her show or MSNBC. Not that that's really a credible source that we should listen to, but millions of people do, where they say stupid stuff and they believe it and they act on it. And sometimes that's deadly. But when it comes to family, there have been situations where families have been split apart over this issue. And as a segue, our third trivia question for tonight is related to that in a lot of ways, because the American Civil War tore families apart. The accounts and the stories that I hear and read about are just unimaginable. So here we have here on Christmas Day, 1863, Lincoln received news of Union victories in Tennessee, bolstering morale during the Civil War. A little bit of perspective there. Now, 1863, we're at the hump of the war was at its middle around Gettysburg, around Antietam. That would have been May, June, July of 1863. Now we're coming on the other side of that. Ulysses S. Grant has come east, where he is now battling Lee in the east, and they're having a drag-out fight. So the war of attrition that's happening on the east, where the Union Army is trying to destroy Lee's army, who was the leader of the Confederacy, the Army of Northern Virginia, that aspect of the war was what was causing Lincoln to lose sleep, because Lee was decimating and having huge victories over the Union Army on the east of the Mississippi, causing politicians, and they called them copperheads, anti-war Northerners, to put pressure on Lincoln to, give up, sue for peace, and whatever. Anyway, so the victories in Tennessee helped that morale, and it was good news for Lincoln, because at that point in time, after Gettysburg, after Vicksburg, it was just a matter of will if the Union was going to win. The only way they could have lost at that point is if they had given up. But that was very important. And so going into 1864, now we're talking about a whole new war now, where the South is actually playing on defense. All right, so that's that. And right now we're at 8:30. We're going to take another break. Let me pull up my actual itinerary here. What do we have here? So we're going to do another giveaway right at 9 o'clock. And let me do that right now, just so you can know what that's about. We gave one away at roughly around 8 o'clock. So at 9 o'clock, we're going to do our second giveaway. And what we're going to do is we're going to give away one of 4 books. You get to choose which one you want. I'm going to pull those up for you and take a look at it. There are 4 of these books by a gentleman by the name of David Barden. He's with Wall Builders. I've done several classes with him, facilitated, met him once. He is a historian. He is a patriot. He's got an organization. He's got a library that has the world's largest private collection of antebellum and Revolutionary War period, and even prior to that, going back to the Pilgrims and all that stuff, documentation, firsthand, original artifacts and manuscripts and letters and all that sort of thing in his own private collection. And the good thing about him is that because he has the original pieces, he can counter argue easily the narratives that are coming out from projects like 1619 and all this CRT stuff where they rewrite history. He can say, you know what? No, that's not what it says. And he tells you why it says it. So these are 4 of his books: Separation of Church and State. The other one here, let me move. I got to remember to move this out of the way because it's really annoying. I like the. So the other one is America's Godly Heritage. Goes into how our country was founded on biblical principles, and not only biblical principles, but on the need to evangelize and promote Jesus Christ. That was part of the founding fathers' tenets, was to promote Christianity and to elevate Jesus Christ. Other one here is the Second Amendment. And the last one here is a book called Bulletproof, a book that I really enjoyed. Talks about how George Washington was able to avoid death after being shot at hundreds of times, where they were literally trained on him and they couldn't hit him. And he had holes in his jackets, shot off horses, and the whole nine. Didn't get a scratch. It's amazing. So that's another good book to have as well. So if you put in the chat here, all you have to do to enter is to put hashtag Christmas anywhere in the comments. Do not put them in the private comments, otherwise they won't register. Put them in the regular comments and you will be entered there. Okay, and so let me just pull up one more thing here and find out where we are. And we'll do that at about 9 o'clock. Oh, okay. So we're actually up against a break right now. So we'll just actually, you know what? Right now, it looks like I need to tell you about what I've been doing in terms of me watching Christmas programs. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. But I want to take a quick break here. I'm not quite ready to prep on that right now. So I'm going to take a real quick break here. Let's say, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's just go ahead and do it. So, all right. So let me just level set and tell you guys what's going on. So if you watch this, been part of this channel for many years, you've seen that we have 3 videos, I believe. One is on top 10 or top 20 Christmas movie, made for TV Christmas movies of all time. That was fun. That was a really fun one. One of the very first videos I've done. And I did it all in one take, which is not recommended. In fact, if you watch the video, you're like, wow, this video is pretty garbage, but I enjoyed doing it. Have some fun memories doing that. The other video we did was the top, I think, 100 Christmas movies of all time as well. And we did a live stream last year as well. So there's 3 Christmas theme videos on the channel. This will be the 4th one. So I didn't have time to do a real heavy countdown this year because they take a lot of time. And with the election going on, I just couldn't justify the bandwidth it would take to do a program that would be worthy of a top 10, or I'm sorry, a top 100, especially dealing with TV shows, because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of episodes. So what I decided to do was I watched as many as I could, and I wanted to find TV. Well, this is sitcom, so this isn't going to be a West Wing. This isn't going to be, Touched by an Angel or anything like that. These are only going to be 30-minute sitcoms, specials about Christmas that have a traditional family appeal, and I'm ranking them by their level of conservatism. And I'm going to explain that as I go through each one of these. So there's 10 of them. And you may find it interesting. I'm pretty shocked actually myself on the content that I've come up with. It is what it is. But they are really good episodes, and I'm pretty sure most of you people out there haven't watched more than 3 of these. I would be shocked if most of you have seen 4 of these, because they're just really obscure. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is going to be I don't know how to label this. This is my top 10 list that I've watched this year, Christmas programs. And let me pull up the first one here. I have a actual, all right, let's do this. I'm going to do this. Here's number 10. And it's actually going to be an episode from the Twilight Zone. Let me move this banner out of the way because this is going to be a problem. So this episode is from the Twilight Zone, episode 2, season 2, episode 11. And it's called The Night of the Meek. And this episode was really interesting. Twilight Zone is essentially a show with science fiction. It has, if you know what it is, I can't really explain it. It's just fantasy, science fiction. But in this particular episode, this gentleman here is an alcoholic. He's a Santa Claus in a department store. He's passing out. He's doing crazy stuff. But he's saying that the reason why he's this way is because he's so upset by the world and men and women being downtrodden and being just too overly commercial and no one caring about each other, and how he would just love to be able to give kids a good Christmas. Well, this particular guy ends up getting a Santa Claus satchel or bag that ends up giving any gift he wants, or whoever wants. It just comes out like in the Santa Claus, with Tim Allen, where he pulls the gift out and gives it to him. It's whatever it is, it's there, and it's unlimited. And of course, things happen, and I won't spoil it, but it's very touching. And the reason why it's on here is because its themes of generosity and caring for the poor resonate with the episode's focus on individuals' redemption over family structure, makes it more universal than specifically conservative. Its somber tone, while moving, lacks the emphasis on family unity often seen in traditional holiday specials. So family values, to give it 3, conservative tone 3, and that's that episode, which I thought was pretty good. Number 9, I didn't do my little thing here. I got to do that. Number 9 is actually Welcome Back, Kotter. It's a show back in the 70s. It was with John Travolta, which he's the main one you probably know about. He's just coming up. But this particular episode was about these guys. They're called sweat hogs. They're basically kids who are delinquent. They're not good students. They're not good academically. They get in trouble. They goof off. And the theme of the show, Welcome Back, Kotter, is the fact that Kotter, whose name is Gabe, was a sweat hog when he was in school. He grew up. He's married now, and now he came back to that same school. I think it's James Buchanan High School. I think it's in New York. And now he is actually the teacher of the new breed or the new class of sweat hogs. And so in this particular episode, they try to get with a homeless man who they feel they can make over. And things happen, and they find out how he got to where he got. And it has a somber ending, but it is uplifting, but it doesn't it doesn't preach to you at all, but it does have a good message here. And why is it conservative? The Sweat Hogs here, the efforts to host a Christmas party for disadvantaged kids, reflect on the kindness and community spirit, but the irreverent humor and focus on non-traditional school family makes a less explicitly conservative tone. That looks like the same as the before. That's not actually what happened. So in this particular case, I'm cut and paste here wrong, but essentially, the homeless man goes back to being homeless because he feels that he's more free that way, that he doesn't have to worry about getting up in the morning. He doesn't worry about these different things. And in some ways it's liberal, but in some ways it's heartwarming that these kids who were thinking about themselves the whole time and mocking this guy all of a sudden now they wanted to actually help him, and they learned about themselves because by giving, they actually felt better about themselves and understood perspective and to appreciate what they had. Number 8. This is an interesting one. This is Alf's Christmas special. This is actually an hour long. And so Alf, who's an alien, he lives with the family. He's, and essentially he's a goofball, but he ends up meeting with a girl in a hospital who is sick, and she befriends him, and she doesn't know. She thinks he's a magic doll, not knowing he's an alien. And Alf is a hugely selfish person or creature, whatever he is. But yet this young girl who is very ill teaches him a lesson about himself. Again, the whole theme about not being selfish, not being self-centered, and actually thinking about someone else other than yourself. And so it's good all across the board. And I like Alf anyway as a program growing up in high school. I thought it was really, really funny. And some of the things he says would not be allowed on TV today for sure. He eats cats, by the way. And he's just he's not politically correct, put it that way. Number 7 is Saved by the Bell, which I was never a fan of the show, but it was on the list. I decided to check it out. Many people recommend it to me as a program that this particular show, by the way, that I should watch. I hated the show because to me, Saved by the Bell was the show that began getting rid of Saturday morning cartoons. I was like, what is this? Why can't you put on, Captain Caveman? Why are you showing this? I don't want to see that live action. I don't want to see these snot-nosed high school kids. It's goofy and it's dumb. But this particular episode was a 2-parter. And it was, again, about homeless person who happened to be living in a mall. And Zach, who's the guy on the screen there, is the main character. He actually likes the girl, doesn't know that her father is the homeless man that he met. And then they do a whole routine of A Christmas Carol in part 2, which I thought was really, 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 really good. And it showed that these kids actually are pretty good actors. Now, they don't let them act on the show because it's kind of a goofy show, but they were playing a thespian type role, this Charles Dickens prose in their dialogue. And you could see that they were actually pretty talented as actors, but they wouldn't let them do that on the show. So you can tell that they were enjoying it. And so again, it goes back to the homeless thing the whole thing about giving and not being so selfish, which in some ways I could be coming across here as this is being very liberal, but it's not, because conservatism in its essence is allowing people to be self-determined, that they have the rights to their own liberty, their own property, their own prosperity. No one's going to get in the way. If you don't work for it, you're not going to get it. And if you choose not to do that, that's fine too. But if you do choose to do it, you should be allowed to do that. And that to me is conservatism in its best. What's not compassion is telling someone what they're going to be because you're this way, you're that way. We're going to pigeonhole you into this because this is the way we see you. And this is all you can do. And we're going to have the government do the things for you because we say you're going to do it this way and not let you come out of that. And that's not compassion. I think the left has done a really good job of changing that and saying just because we're compassionate, we want to give to the poor, we want to help other people on our own free will, not being mandated. That's conservatism. And I think they flipped the whole notion on that. So a very good episode. I really enjoyed it. And so number 6 is going to be Silver Spoon's season 1, of episode 13, The Best Christmas Ever. And there's definitely a theme here. All these particular shows deal with the homeless, and this one does as well. Ricky Schroeder his name is Ricky in the show, but also his name is Ricky in the show. Ricky Schroeder is the actor. He is the son of a very wealthy toy maker, and he lives in a very rich house. He has everything he needs or wants. I mean, he's paid. And so in this particular episode, some kid off the street wanders into the door, knocks on the door. He wants some information about getting a job, and Ricky gives him a job in the house to put a Christmas light ornaments on. He gives him $20, and from there the kid goes and he tries to buy food for his parents. All along, his parents are living in a cave and they don't have money, of course. And Ricky finds out and he goes and meets them. And of course, the same themes as before. And so, again, this episode's focus on the class disparity rather than nuclear family relationships. This is something, nuclear family is one thing, and I definitely I think that's the biblical way, a man and a woman in a home. That's, studies show that's the best way, psychologically, spiritually, the whole nine. But in our reality, that's not always the case. But the family in this particular episode, they were nuclear. They just weren't living in a house. They were living in a cave because the guy lost his job. And so Ricky, same theme as well, was trying his best to help these people, and again, learning about himself along the way. So the Silver Spoons, episode 1, the best Christmas ever. Sorry, season 1, episode 13, the best Christmas ever. All right, number 5, is All in the Family. This is a really, this was a really good episode because Archie Bunker, if you know, this is a show. I'm not sure exactly where the show was set. For Archie Bunker, of course, Rob Reiner, a meathead, who is a super duper liberal now, and he's a super duper liberal in this particular series, is this liberal left wing son, and his dad is he is who he is. He speaks his mind. He doesn't care, and he doesn't buy into the hippie world at all. He eats meat and potatoes. He has his beliefs, and that's it. And he doesn't apologize to anybody. But in this case, he doesn't get his Christmas bonus, so he's not able to give his family the kind of Christmas he wants to give them. And he's taking a lot of heat for it, and he's trying to hide that from everyone because he's a proud man. And it's just heartwarming to see Archie Bunker, this stern man who's proud, whatever, have to, it just shows that he had a heart. And just, it's the whole notion that conservatives don't have hearts, or that we don't care about the world, about families, about babies, about women, about the country, about the homeless, the poor. That's something that's been instilled in the left to project what the left is. They're actually that way. And true conservatives don't do that. We embrace the notion of charity comes from the fact that God has given us charity. God has given us grace. That's the founding conservatism that came across the Atlantic Ocean on the Mayflower, the Puritans. That Puritan mindset is still here in America. And to see Archie go through this and his wife having his back and supporting him, even though he failed in his work, and he is not able to provide the kind of Christmas he wants to provide his family, and how he has to take a lot of heat because they think that he lied, and he didn't. He just didn't get his bonus. And so it was a really good episode. And that's All in the Family, season 2, episode 13. It's called Christmas Day at the Bunkers. And number 4 is going to be The Brady Bunch, one of my favorite shows of all time. This is a fun one. I like it because it's very cute. The mom has laryngitis. She can't talk. And so she wants to be able to sing in the Christmas pageant. All the family is trying to support her, rally around her. The Brady Bunch is a blended family. If you don't know the story, it's you have a guy meets a lady. The guy has 3 boys. The lady has 3 girls, and they get married. 6 of them. They have a maid named Alice, and craziness happens. It's really one of my favorite shows of all time growing up. Super cool. And it's just, how they rallied behind her because her voice wasn't there, and they were afraid that she wouldn't be able to sing in the Christmas pageant. And so I really like that one a lot. I've seen that one several times growing up. All right, number 3 is going to be Family Ties, A Keaton Christmas Carol. It's from season 2, episode 9. And this particular one, of course, Alex is Scrooge. If you don't know the story of of Family Ties, it's essentially an 80s drama, or not drama, but it's a 80s sitcom where Alex P. Keaton is a super conservative son who has the parents of super duper liberals, hippies. And so there's that culture clash there going on. And this whole thing here is dealing with there's actually 2 of these. Okay, yeah. So basically he's a modern day Scrooge, and they go through the Christmas Carol story, and he goes through that. I'm a sucker for Christmas Carol renditions, whatever they are. All right, let's move right along here. My number 2 on my list for the best Christmas ones I've seen this year is going to be Different Strokes, Santa's Helper. This is Garrett Morris as Santa Claus. He was on Saturday Night Live skit. He's a Santa Claus who is a little shady. And so basically he's like a Grinch, and you can kind of imagine what happens. And what's interesting is in this show is at the end of it, the father of the Drummonds. So you have Willis and you have Arnold. Those are the 2 kids to the left, and their sister. They were adopted, and so they're living in a very wealthy house, studio, wherever they are, and their Christmas gets stolen essentially. And because Arnold, the younger one, is able to make friends with the thief, in this case Garrett Morris, Santa Claus, he ends up having a second change of heart. But at the end of it, I guess I'm spoiling this for you guys, but it's been around for a long time, is that Drummond, the father, finds out about it and confronts him and doesn't let him get away with it. He doesn't let him know that this is okay. You can't steal stuff, even if you do bring it back. And he promised to make him, turn over another leaf. And you get the impression that he's not going to do it. But I like the fact that there is a sound foundation of right and wrong. And that's pretty much on all these shows back then, right and wrong. There's no middle ground. If this show had been made today, it would have been like, well, I'm black. I don't have any money. The white man's put me down. You have all this money. I can take what I want, and it's no big deal. No, not in this particular episode. But today, this couldn't be made because someone would get triggered and say, no, well, he's white and he has all this money. How dare him be able to do that? So anyway, that was Different Strokes from season 5, episode 12, Santa's Helper. And number 1 on my Santa Claus or Christmas show list that I've watched this year only, is Facts of Life, season 5, episode 12, The Christmas Show. And this one was really good because I'm forgetting her name on the right there, but the girl on the right in the red was essentially going to be alone for Christmas. Things fell through. Everyone had plans to do whatever they want to do, and they all decided to sacrifice their Christmas for her. And it was really touching because, again, self-sacrifice here. And I have here white conservative Miss Garrett and the girls host a Christmas party for the underprivileged children, blending charity with the themes of unity and respect for tradition. The episode celebrates the idea of selfless giving within a stable community-oriented family structure, making it deeply resonant with conservative values. So if you can check out any of these programs on, I guess you can go, on Roku and watch it, or Amazon Prime or whatever, or who knows where they are now, but sometimes you can watch them on YouTube. I would recommend checking these out because it will show you essentially the contrast of where we have come and gone in the media, and how today the content we have on TV is utter garbage. In fact, one of the lists or shows that I didn't make on the list was an episode of Father Knows Best. The show was called Father Knows Best, and this particular show, the father wants to take the family into the woods to cut down a Christmas tree. Of course, snowstorm happens, and they get stranded into a separate lodge somewhere, which is occupied by someone who's squatting on it. And of course, he was homeless, of course, as well. And but in this episode, you have kids handling guns. You have, just a whole different mindset in terms of the father and how they trusted him, even though he made a mistake in taking them out. They still supported him. They didn't call him a knucklehead. They didn't treat him like Homer Simpson, or Family Guy. He was still the father. He apologized for making a mistake. He supported him. And you can't have a show anymore like Father Knows Best. You just cannot. All right. So that's into that segment. And I hope you enjoyed that. Looking back on it, it was worth the time to watch those movies, those videos. It was really, really nostalgic, and it makes you kind of a little upset that we can't get that kind of programming anymore. We just can't. So I'm gonna go to the comments here, and I'm gonna let you guys know one more time that we're going to be doing your drawing in a few minutes here. So if you want to take part in this particular drawing, we're going to be giving away one of 4 books, and I'll put them on the screen here if I can find it again. I'll just read them off here. Separation of Church and State, America's Godly Heritage, Second Amendment, and Bulletproof, all by David Barden of Wall Builders. Books about American history, and it will inspire you for sure. So we're giving these books away. We've already given one away, and all you have to do to enter is go into the comments, not the private chat, put hashtag Christmas anywhere in there, and it will register you automatically. So I'm gonna look at the comments here and see what we have here. Got some comments here. Man and a half. Put Christmas here. He says we are back. Great conversation. Great show. Alf was one of the shows we had. Oh, Queens is where All in the Family is set. Joe, that's right. Thank you, Joe. Yep, Blair and Joe. That's right. All right. So with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and do this here. Let me see if I can. Let's do a drawing here. We're not going to let you win twice, Tracy, if you win. All right, man and a half, you are the winner. So all you have to do is email us at giveaways at the Conservative Take. It's giveaways at the Conservative Take, and we will ship whichever book you want. So make sure you let us know which one of the books you want, and we will send that out to you. Congratulations, man and a half, on that. And we'll be doing one more probably at the very end. We'll let more people get on. We'll be doing it probably around 11 o'clock, right before we end the broadcast. All right. So let me go back to the trivia, because I did do a trivia earlier. I talked about it. I think I did the one on Christmas Day for Lincoln. Let's do one more trivia. This one here is Thomas Paine's The American Crisis, read by colonists during Christmas 1776, inspired revolutionary resolve with its famous line, these are the times that try men's souls. And I will comment briefly on that. And we have Jackie has actually come on. We'll bring her on after the break. So Thomas Paine, if you guys don't know who this gentleman was, he was a founding father. He was pretty much a loser in everything he did. I mean, he was rough around the edges. He was very opinionated, but he was a patriot. And this guy wrote 2 books that were incredible. One was called Common Sense. That was essentially him articulating about 100 years worth of issues and ideas that have come up through John Locke and those guys, and putting it into a concise pamphlet that sparked a revolution. And those ideas were codified in a war. But the first year of the war didn't go very well. 1776, the first Battle of Brooklyn. We did a live stream on the Battle of Brooklyn. That was a complete disaster, and it should have been over immediately. George Washington, by the grace of God, was able to get out of that. He literally had fog come down out of heaven, a deep fog, to allow his army to retreat across the now Brooklyn Bridge area of, I think is that the Hudson? Maybe saying it wrong. Anyway, over into Manhattan. So anyway, that's that. So, but this particular book called The American Crisis, George Washington asked him to write another book to inspire his troops, because at the end of 1776, the enlistments of his particular army, of I said about 3,000 to 4,000 of active, able-bodied men, were about to expire, and they were going to go home. And if they had gone home, the revolution would have been over. And so this book inspired them to do the crossing of the Delaware that we talked about earlier, and also to pursue that into Princeton as well, to follow up in the beginning of 1777. Anyway, so it's a good thing there. And that happened around Christmas, right before the crossing of the Delaware. All right. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to bring Jackie on for our next segment, and we're going to have some fun with that one, and looking forward to that. So I'm going to break here, and I think I'm going to take another 5-minute break, and I'll cut it short, probably about 3 minutes or so, but I'm going to get something to drink and whatever. So I'll probably cut it short at about 3 minutes, but I'll see you in a few. Thank you so much for joining us on the Conservative Take in our second annual Christmas Extravaganza virtual party.
I gotta say this to my white friends. Don't ever be afraid for somebody to call you racist. If it's racist for you to support a president that makes sure we have the lowest black unemployment, to make sure black babies ain't being killed, to make sure there's money invested in our community, well, tell them you're the best racist ever. I mean, and somebody, please do me a favor. Can somebody tell Donald Trump how to be a racist? Because he's not doing a good job.
Yo, Black Lives Matter! Actually, all lives matter. That's racist. Black Lives Matter!
One day later.
That's racist. All lives matter!
There's $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when...
Ooh, that was an... Okay.
You study today's black culture is trash. Ain't nothing positive about black culture. We're not highlighting spelling bee winners. We don't talk about the newest black business that's doing good. When you go on social media, you look at some of the most trending videos and trending topics. It ain't black empowerment. It ain't uplifting black people. When you look at our movies, we ain't got no black heroes. Black culture has black propaganda. Hitler used propaganda to get the Germans to turn on the Jews. We use propaganda for our culture. We propagate pimps, gangsters, killers, womanizers, robbers, deceit, being unfaithful. We got some propaganda, homie, that's brainwashing.
I am a pastor. I'm a man of faith. I have a profound reverence for life. Well, I want to save your life.
I have to respond to this very quick because he told me Black Lives Matter. And if you think about it, Senator, in Atlanta, Georgia, there's more black baby that is aborted than anything. So if Black Lives Matter, why are you not protecting those babies? And instead of aborting those babies, why are you not baptizing those babies?
The Woman King is a modern-day version of D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. The 1915 silent film was used to promote racism through its false narratives. The Woman King does the same thing. It lies and misappropriates history, leaving the viewer into thinking that the Dahomey tribe eradicated slavery from within their ranks. They did not. Instead, they continued on with impunity. Yet, people still make excuses. Some people refuse to put any blame whatsoever on Africa for their huge part in the slave trade. Now, why is that? Black Lives Matter! Oh, did you see the new Candace Owens film on BLM? Nah, man, you a sellout. Oh, you mean BLM raising nearly $80 million, but almost zero money going to the black community? Building several lavish multi-million-dollar properties in affluent all-white neighborhoods and investing $32 million in Wall Street? You mean that kind of a sellout? Oh, man, Black Lives Matter! Despite Roots' claim that during the heyday of the massive slave trade from West Africa to America, a white man was more likely to develop malaria in Africa than catch slaves. The average life expectancy of a white male in sub-Saharan Africa's interior at the time was less than a year. Men from Europe or the Western Hemisphere arrived on Africa's coast, bought slaves, and fled as quickly as they could. For the slave trade to be possible, they needed massive help from Africans. All right, we are back, and we got to change that. I'm going to do a new one for next year. We've had that for a while, but I'm going to keep the king face, leave that on the front end for personal reasons. That was a buddy of mine. He's no longer with us. And so with that, we're going to bring Miss Jackie in. It's been a while since we've had her on, and excited about that. Let me get rid of this banner because that's no longer applicable. Let's do that. All right. And let's bring her on.
Hey there.
Hey, how's it going?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I don't have anything Christmas ready, but today's the day I'm starting. I started doing a little cleaning today, getting the bins out and getting ready for Christmas. You've had your tree up for like 2 months, right?
Yes. We actually have 3 trees, actually, now. The one behind me and
one and a half, one in Jonathan's room.
Oh, actually, we have 4, actually.
That's what Jonathan told me.
Yeah, we have 4 this year.
You got.
I mean, they're small trees. We had one real tree. The rest of them
right. Auxiliary trees. I call those auxiliary trees.
Right.
But you are the guy that should have like the reindeer antlers on your car with the big red nose.
No.
I could totally see you doing that. You're just a Christmas guy.
I like Christmas.
I know you do. And I think that, and let me just say before I even start talking, listening to Greg, he's so thoughtful and so like measured when he speaks.
Yes.
I listen to everything, even though, I'm not really a sports girl, but I listen to the whole sports section just because he could be like a Walter Cronkite or that kind of person. He's like a calm, nice Mark Levin or Victor David Hansen, like that kind of.
Love him.
Oh, I love him too. But Greg, that reminds me of that because he's just so thoughtful. I'm much more emotional. You're thoughtful, but you get emotional too. A lot of times my thoughts come through my heart, but I feel like Greg actually, his thoughts come through his brain. So
right, yeah.
Listen to him.
Yes, that's definitely not me. I'm not a brains person. So
well, we're hot. We got the hot button all the time. I was talking to my friend Alexis recently before we get started, and I can't even watch. Mostly I always watch YouTube. I'm a reseller, so I watch a lot of thrifting videos. I watch a lot of antique shows and things like that. But the politics, one can hardly take it anymore. I just would like to have some peace for the Christmas season, at least. Let's just have some peace and calm.
Yes. You don't believe the peace I felt after the November 5th.
Well, I do believe that because remember you were at my house on the night of the 2020.
Was that in that room? That the room I was in?
This is my family room, but I think you were back in the office.
I never want to go in that room ever again. Every time I go in there, I get like relapsing.
Well, listen, you know what though? I mean, there's a time for everything, right? And now is the time for things to change a little bit. And maybe it had to get that bad to engender this kind of response in the country. So, you know, God's in charge as far as I'm concerned. God's definitely in charge of America. So whatever he sees fit, I'm willing to ride with. And I actually think the next 4 years will be difficult in a different way as far as politics and change, because change is very painful. Cultural change is painful. Even when everybody wants things to be different, it's still, you know, like if you work in an organization and they try to change the culture, it's a nightmare. There's bodies everywhere.
Yep.
So that's what that might be. So I think for myself and maybe for people that are listening on the show too, we're trying to put some of our energy into alternative areas now that at least some people are stepping up and, you know, the things moving in the correct direction. Maybe we could focus on some more pleasant things.
Right. 100%. I did not want to be doing, I did not want to be doing this. I mean, YouTube, one thing, but not of this content. I like to do movies. That's what I started to do.
I remember maybe when you first, years ago, you were much more with TV shows and movies and reviews and things like that.
You know why I stopped? Because of the Oscars. I love the Oscars. The Oscars was like my Super Bowl, my second Super Bowl. And when I would watch all the movies. I'd watch the best directed film, the best, and best picture. And most of if you do that, you're going to get most of them anyway. So, and I pick a few here and there. So I would have watched most of the films, and I have a scorecard sit down there or whatever. And then when they got doing that stuff, I was done. It broke my heart. I couldn't get into it anymore. And this whole channel, if you go back 4 years ago, that's all you'll see.
I remember. I'm not really into. I don't think I've watched a recent movie in quite some. Like the most recent movie I watched was probably Larry Elder's movie. What's it called?
Larry Elder.
You know.
Uncle Tom.
Uncle Tom, right? That's like the most recently made movie I've seen.
Yeah, Uncle Tom 2 was actually he produced that one. Yeah.
And when people are like, oh, do you like this A-list star or that A-list star? Like, I don't want anything to do with any of those people.
Yeah, and they have no relevancy anymore. And just
not only that, they're so morally rotten to the core, and their whole culture and their values and everything about them. Like, what do they have to say to me that's going to make me be a better person or bring me, you know, be stronger, be smarter? It's nothing but stuff that'll just tear you down. So, but that's not what we're supposed to be talking about today. We're supposed to be talking about old Christmas versus new Christmas.
Yes.
So I would like to say I'm old. I'm slightly older than you, but I think that the Christmas of the 70s to me was so much different. I don't know if you've noticed on Facebook, a lot of people have been posting that they feel bad for the kids today because, well, when I was very little, you could walk through the town and all the stores would be decorated and all the streets had the decorations going across. And it was like such a big deal. You know that movie, The Christmas Story, where they go to the department store? That's the kind of thing I sort of remember from when I was very little. But then when you got older, you could go to the mall. And I don't even know, there is almost no malls left around, but go to the mall, you see Santa, they'd have like your church would sing there one night. I remember they had this big tower of poinsettias at Plymouth Meeting Mall. And then after Christmas, they'd break it down and everybody got to take poinsettias home. It was just so much, the global atmosphere was so much nicer. Have you ever seen the picture of New York City on Christmas Eve with all the crosses on the high-rise building?
I have seen that. Yeah, the 50s.
Is that Christmas or Easter? I can't remember. But in any case, yes, that, when we could all acknowledge, I don't feel like we should only acknowledge Christianity, but it's a pretty big deal. And I think we should at least publicly acknowledge that. I'm not a happy holidays person. I'm a Merry Christmas person. But the other thing for the kids, right? So that magic of Christmas and that joy, I was very lucky. And if you talk to any of my siblings, my mother worked like a dog for Christmas. We never got our tree till Christmas Eve, and that was because my father didn't want to pay until the prices went down on Christmas Eve.
Nice.
So we always got the tree at
I
Christmas
can dig it.
All right. Well, they're thieves. I'm not paying. So Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Hey.
But we didn't but we would go to bed, and my mother by herself would decorate that whole tree. And so I thought that was really nice. So even when my mother, when she was living here with me, my son was 25, she would want Nathaniel, who was a 25-year-old man, go to bed so she could put the presents out, because she would never put the presents out till everybody was in bed. And then she had a big ritual where everybody had their own spot, and that's where your pile was. So for us, you always woke up to Christmas magic. You went to bed in a house with maybe a bear tree, but no presents, no anything. And when you got up in the morning, it was like magical elves were in the house, and the tree was fully decorated, and all the presents are out, and it was so exciting. That's really joyful.
That's great. That's great stuff. What kind of tree did you guys have? Did you have
always have a real tree?
You always had a real tree.
Mm-hmm.
So when I come over there again, remind me to show you. I have this is getting a little bit transparent, but that's fine. So, I'm adopted, and my parents gave me a book that I had ever since I was, I can remember all the things that happened when I got home, came home, whatever. And it's stocked with the letters from different family members about my parents, and this and that, and pictures. But a lot of stuff about Christmas are in there as well. And we had an old, then it wasn't old, but it was one of those silver trees. You know what I mean? They're
very hot right now in the resale.
Can see right. Really, they are.
Yeah.
You can see right through it, right? But here's the thing: it didn't have lights on it. What we did have was we had one of those little windy, cranky things that it had different colors. A circle. It would spin. It had like red and blue and orange and green. It would just spin, and it would project the light onto the tree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it would. I remember just being there as a kid, being under the tree with the light in my face, blue, red, orange, blue, red. You know what I mean? And it's like, and just looking at all the presents under the tree, shaking them, smelling them. It was
a magic to it.
It really was. Yeah.
And here's another, this is very big, and it's another hot topic on Facebook right now. And I hope people write in the comments which category they fall into. In our house, you open one present at a time, and we go from youngest to oldest. So my little brother Nicky would open one, and we'd all watch it. And then my brother Michael would open one, and we'd go all the way up to my grandfather and then start over again. But that stretched the joy of Christmas out. And also, you got to see when you gave somebody something, what their reaction was, because if you're busy tearing presents open, nobody knows what they got. And also, I think kids, they'll open it, they go, oh, great, throw it away, open the next one, throw it away, open the next one, throw it away. But if you have to stop and savor, so in your family, did you guys open presents one at a time, or did everybody ripped open their stuff?
My dad was absolutely, and I appreciate it now. It was very much like you said, it was like one person at a time, and someone would either bring the gift to you or you would give it to someone else, and you would have all the focus on your gift.
Right.
At least for the first few.
Right.
Eventually,
not 20 minutes, but
eventually,
you opened it.
Yeah, and that was, and here's the thing for my family. This is a trip though, Jackie. Oof. My dad was like, look, we're not opening presents until not only we all get up, which is pretty common, but not until we clean our house, eat breakfast. And one year, I remember it worked out that nothing had been done, vacuuming, whatever. We didn't open gifts until that evening because something just kept coming up, whatever. And I was pissed.
That's rough. I remember when we used to have church on Christmas morning, I think we could open our stockings, but no presents till after Christmas, or vice versa. I forget which one it was, but it was like, I gotta go to church. But in the joy of the day, it wasn't the worst. Plus, you got to open something before you went. Look, man in half. That's right. Open those presents one at a time. And another thing that my mother did that I tried to do with my kids, and once again in the comments, I'd be curious. So even though there was 5 of us, my mother, we didn't get like big luxurious presents. Right? We got a big present, one present from my parents, but my mom bought presents for all the kids to give each other. And I think that is such good training because first of all, it teaches even as a kid, you know, that you have to give a present to your siblings, or, you know, you have to go out and get the present, the card, whatever. I think it's good to start young, but also, you know, each of us got 4 little gifts and then the one big present from my parents, because all the siblings gave each other, which my mother did all the buying, all the wrapping, all the card signing until we got older. But once again, that stretched Christmas out nicely. It was an opportunity for them to not have to spend $1 million. We didn't have a lot of money, and there was 5 kids. And also, I just think that's really, I think that's nice. And I raised my kids when they were very little. I'd buy them presents for each other. And as they got older, you know, 8, 9, they would start participating in that, not financially, but at least picking out the present, maybe wrapping it, you know, discussing it. So they could take some responsibility for buying gifts for others in their own life. Yeah,
my parents, I don't know. I just
your
started
siblings
buying.
There's significant age difference between you and your siblings, isn't there? Like when you're all growing up
10
together?
years to my brother, 10 years to my brother, and about 15 to my sister.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
you
my
were the
parents,
only little one.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, I don't ever remember them. Maybe it's a suppressed memory. I do remember my parents giving a gift for me to give to them. I believe I do vaguely remember that.
Well, that's good. I think that's good.
So Jonathan, of course, my son, I basically, I took him out to Five Below, and he was so excited, and now he's like wrapping gifts. He thinks he's the guru of wrapping gifts. It's just interesting. I mean, to see, and to your point, Jackie, you know, a lot of these kids, and myself at some point, and I kind of spoil my kids, and you see them throwing gifts over, looking for the next one, and it gets to be too much. And my wife really doesn't want that to be reality, but part of me still wants to do it. But I think if we can kind of measure it so that they also can actually give and get the joy of giving, both are fun.
I agree.
But in different ways. So
yeah, it's just the 3 of you, but you could take turns opening the presents, I guess, you know, amongst the 3 of you. But you could buy a whole bunch of little stuff just for Alexis to have little stuff to open, so you can pace Jonathan. You know what I mean? Use it as pacers to slow him down.
Yeah, her big thing was stockings, and stockings was never a thing for us. We would never get things from our stocking. So that's a new thing for me. So,
well, you know what? Speaking of, I have on my counter here something that Jonathan picked out for his mother's stocking, and it was you're right. He is getting it because he's like, wouldn't this make a great stocking stuffer for my mother? And I was like, oh yeah, sure, put it in the cart. But you know, it was funny. It was funny that he's starting to think like that. He's only 8 years old, but Alexis gets that from my mother. Stockings for everybody, and they were packed full of things that you need, like when you're little, like really cool toys, or the book games, you know, like you would like crosswords or search words, or like my brother Tony, she always got, there was a magic shop actually where we lived. That's how old I am. There was an actual magic shop in Norristown, Pennsylvania. I think it was called Oscar's, and she would always get little magic tricks and, you know, like trick stuff that boys like, you know, like you can make your thumb disappear or whatever.
Yeah, that was cool.
Glasses, like all that corny stuff. And then when you got older, she would get even now, my mother's passed 2 years ago, but she would go in my bathroom, look at my shampoo, look at my deodorant, see what I use, and that's what she'd put in the stocking. She would make all those stockings. She would really tailor for the individual as to what your likes were. So that was very time consuming. And as someone who did it for her sons for a long time, it's also very expensive. But, you know, that to me, we always say we like the stockings almost better than the gifts, because there's a million things to open. You know what I mean? So you get to open. Right. And if it's really bought for you with thoughtfulness, that really makes you feel so good. And Merry Christmas to you in Australia too.
Yeah, I was looking at that, waiting for you to notice that. This is our first that I can remember anyone from Australia on this channel.
Yeah,
that's fabulous.
They must have heard I was going to be on, so they popped in.
I would love to go to Australia
someday.
So, don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm going to say, is it Dejan or Dejan? Just if you want to, if you can, tell us a little bit about what Christmas is like down under, because I had Christmas in Florida a few years back in Miami. It's so different.
I was going to ask, even though North Carolina is different a little bit.
Yeah. You know, because it's a little warm, you know, but Florida's out of control because they have palm trees everywhere. It's like,
Well, it could really be hot in Florida on Christmas. Now, actually tonight it's going down to freezing supposedly here in North Carolina. But I mean, Christmas, when you're young, you always want to have a white Christmas. You always want that snow, especially if you're getting like a sled or a saucer or ice skates or something like that for your Christmas present. At this point, I'm not so hot on that. Although your son told me he cried when it snowed the other day here.
He cried in happiness?
Yes, he's so happy.
Yeah, I put it on Instagram when it was coming down, and I did a little transition because it was gone 24 hours later.
Yeah. But I bet if Christmas is different where it's hot. I just think, I don't know, that all that, like in front of the fire with the hot cocoa and, blazing fire and all that kind of cold activities is not happening in Australia. But I bet it's still nice.
Yeah, I've only had 3 or 4 white Christmases. One was in Germany. That doesn't really count because it's still every single day. And one was just around, I think, Greensboro. I think it snowed one year. And maybe once in Maryland where I was. But that's about it. It's pretty rare for it to snow on Christmas. That have snow on the ground at Christmas.
Right, is one thing. But and born and raised in Pennsylvania. Well, I don't know if you know the story. Well, no, it didn't happen that often. It seems like it snowed less and less, but my brother Nicky was born in the blizzard of 1966.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Right. So, well, I
wasn't born, but I'm familiar with it.
And all of a sudden, we woke up on Christmas and she wasn't there, and a snowplow took her and my father to the hospital, and she was supposed to have it at one hospital, but they couldn't get there, so she had it at the local Catholic hospital. And I think my father had to walk home. He couldn't get a ride home. But I mean, the baby born in a blizzard is pretty wild.
Well,
on Christmas Day.
Well, Jonathan was born. I won't say what date it was, but he was born in a blizzard.
Was it a blizzard then?
Oh yeah. I'll tell you about off record. I'll tell you about.
Yeah. I know what day he was born on because somebody else I know has a birthday on the same day.
And I have pictures. I mean, I was driving. First of all, I'm fortunate to drive home with 3 kids. I have 3 modes of driving: normal mode, crazy I don't care mode, and I'm not hardly moving mode. And that's the mood I was with. I had the baby in the back seat. I'm like going 10 miles per hour, and freaking out, you know what I mean? And have a snowstorm too. It was like, I'm not moving mode on crack. I'm really like, I'm snail's pace. It was like 2 hours to get home,
And you're 5 minutes away, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know what? When I was thinking about what we were going to talk to, I was thinking, I think that the internet and technology has had a big influence on Christmas because first of all, a lot of people want to get like PlayStation games or whatever, things that you do alone maybe or just with one other person. So it's not like group activities. You're getting things where you're going to go down in the den or down in the rumpus room or down into your bedroom and you're going to use that item by yourself, your new iPad, your new iPhone. So I personally think that there's going to be somewhat of a revolution with IT. I think that I've been saying for 3 years that I'm getting a dumb phone and I haven't gotten it yet, but people are. And I just heard Andrew Huberman, who is a pretty influential guy, talking about he keeps all his social media on one phone, which he keeps away. And he just uses his regular phone all day. And then he sets aside a specific time amount in a day to get on that social media phone. And then he puts it away again. I think people are going to start getting seeing that it's not good for us and it's really not good for your kids. There's a ad I see all the time, a guy that is he used to be like vice president at Google, some higher up, and he's not anymore. It's an Indian gentleman, and he said that they got called to the school and told their son was hyperactive and he had ADHD and he needed medication and this and that. His grades were bad. He was not paying attention. He couldn't sit still, and they took away and the guy says this, we took away his iPad. We took away his iPad, and within a couple months, his grades were up into the 90s. He was pleasant. He was nice. He was a totally different kid, and he was doing great in school. No meds. So I think all that is going to come to a head, and I think that it maybe had a little bit of a dampening of the social atmosphere of the holiday, and then I hope it goes back to where you're really spending time and truly being in the moment with family and friends. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
Yeah, we had a family game night. I'm gonna bring Reagan if he wants to come on.
Yeah, come on.
So we had family game night. We played 3 games of Trouble. It was like, I mean, I just can you just take bamboo shoots and shove them up my eyelids, please?
Was this recently?
This is 2 days ago.
I bought Trouble to play with Jonathan, and he goes, "I got it at my house."
That's hold on. That's when you gave him?
No, I haven't. No, I bought it at a yard sale, and I just brought it home. And I said, "Hey, Jonathan, look, I'm going to try this game next time." He goes, "Oh, we got that already." But what? You didn't enjoy playing the game?
Well, in retrospect, I did, but it's just one of those things. It's like, it's in retrospect, it was great, but it was just the anxiety of Trouble. The game is like you're trying to get around the board, and you're right there to that thing, and someone comes on and just knocks you back to the beginning. It's stressful.
So it was the stress of the game.
It's a stressful game, man.
My God, well, we can't even talk about Monopoly then.
Well, I'd rather play Monopoly than Trouble.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, so Greg, what do you think? Do you guys play board games? What do you guys do to get out of the digital cesspool that we're in these days?
So we've played board games in the past. My wife loves board games. We have a few, I think, around here somewhere. Sorry, and I enjoy playing Monopoly. I haven't played it in a while, but yeah, in general, we like board games or card games with trivia and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a really good way to spend quality family time together. So yeah, I agree. That's a lot of fun. And it's really neat to hear you talk about how Christmas was when you were kids. I know, one of the things that I remember is just getting up just super early because you're all jacked up about, Christmas and what you're going to get. Of course,
3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. It's still dark outside or whatever. And you're getting up, can we open presents? It's like, no, go back to bed. And now as a parent, I can understand what my parents went through because, our kids did the same thing. It's like, come on, just go back to bed for, another hour. And then by the time they get up, it's still like 7 o'clock or whatever time it was. But yeah, I mean, to see the excitement in our kids' faces when they open their gifts and whatnot. I mean, it's priceless. And then, as you get older, because when you're a kid, you hear these people tell you it's better to give than to receive. And you're like, yeah, right. I don't believe that. Gimme, right?
Heck yeah.
But as you get older, you find out that that's true. I mean, I get a lot more pleasure and joy out of giving than I do receiving. I don't care if I don't get anything at this point for Christmas or my birthday or anything. I just get just a lot more joy and satisfaction in giving. So, that's what it should be all about anyway. But no.
Greg, let me ask you a question, if I may. And I'll ask Kyle too. Most people, and I know what mine was, like the one Christmas where you got something that was so exciting and you couldn't believe it. I remember it was the Christmas that I was in 6th grade and I got the Bobby Sherman Christmas album. I really wanted it like the real Bobby Sherman album, but this one, and I remember standing up and jumping up and down and screaming. And my father looking at me like, what? What is wrong with you? But it made him happy to see how happy I was. Right? So, Greg, did you have a year where you got something that was so fantastic you were so overjoyed?
Oh, yeah. So I can't remember exactly what year it was. It was maybe mid-70s, which is aging me a little bit. But my sister and I, we'd get like a gift together, every Christmas. So we got a pinball machine one Christmas.
Ooh.
And I mean, we were just stoked, right? That we got this pinball machine. And I can't remember how long it was after we got it. Some friends of ours, of course, in retrospect, I don't know how good of friends they actually were. They came over and tore it up. And that was the end of that. It worked, but it never really worked the same after that. So, they kind of poured water on on our parade, I guess. But no, that was probably the one that was most memorable for me when we got a pinball machine. I mean, that was just, and of course, kids now are like, what pinball machine? You know, of course, you know, it's all about video games and stuff like that. No, that did it for me when we got a pinball machine that one Christmas many a moon ago.
So exciting. And you know what? Kyle, I want to hear what yours was, but I just want to say, like, do you wish sometimes something like that could make you that happy now or that excited? You know, because we just get jaded as you get older, right? So you don't really feel that kind of like amazing excitement over. I mean, I like gifts, and I do like giving them better than getting them. But that jolt is something that's really just for kids. How about you, Kyle? What was your best year?
I'm about to show you right here on the screen. So my parents, the Atari 2600, that was what every kid wanted. But my parents wouldn't get that because that machine messes up the TV set. It'll leave like marks on your TV set. It'll ruin your TV set. So we're not going to have anything that's going to put on TV set. But then this invention happened. It was a video game system. I'm put it on the screen right here. It's called Vectrex. It's a system that was self-contained, had its own little cartridges in there, and it had it's basically vector graphics, which is what it was. It wasn't like what we see today. It was like the old Asteroids video games. And I lost my mind on this system.
Were you surprised because you thought you weren't going to ever get a video game, right?
Well, yeah. The thing was, they weren't necessarily against video games. They were just against it being on the TV set. We only had 2 TVs in the house. So number one, it's going to take up a TV set. Number two, they're afraid it's going to damage it because back then they didn't have screensavers, right? So if you left it on the screen, it would be burned.
They thought you burned your TV.
Yeah. So, but that was it. And I think another year I got one of the Mattel football games too. Mattel Football 2, the green one. Oh, and it was just, and that one was good because it had headphone jack, so I could play it in my bed and no one could hear me play. You see, so that's another thing too. Is I could play all night when no one knew about it. So yeah, but I'm going to speak to your point there, Jackie, about this and the jolt. And I think, and Greg mentioned this brilliantly before about Jesus Christ and the meaning of the season and everything. I think what we see here is a shadow of what's to come in eternity. And I think the things we experience are going to be on an infinite level. So we're getting a taste of Christmas morning at the earliest of ours being a kid, seeing the one gift we wanted. And that feeling, that's going to be like heaven 10 times infinity forever. So I think it's something to look forward to in the gift that Greg mentioned of Christ coming in to us and delivering us from ourselves. I think that is what Greg was talking about. And it's full circle because there's going to be a reward at the end of all this. And I think Christmas almost, to me, is a picture of that at a level that's infinitely less than we're going to see eventually.
I think you could probably only fathom it by comparing it to that joy that you felt as a child or something so amazing. But I also just want to say, especially in lieu, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, of the last 4 years, I'm really this year trying to focus on New Testament Christmas, just to be more loving, take more joy, be more friendly, just be kinder and nicer as an antidote to all the, the unhappiness of the last 4 years. And let's really do what Christmas should be about. Yes, about Jesus, but also the qualities that Jesus wants us to use and have and be all year long, but definitely during Christmas.
Yeah, I'm bad about that. I told my pastor today that I need some prayer for forgiving some people.
You got to.
Because I'm still pissed of many things that have been tweeted to me, said to me in person, online. And then now, unfortunately, all of them have either defriended me, and I can't say I can't told you so because they
can't go back. You're gonna be like Stephen A. Smith and just, or maybe they'll be like Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, won't you? Greg, we got Greg here. That's a sports guy. Greg, what are your thoughts of Stephen A. Smith and what he said about J6?
Many things,
just in general. Yeah,
like
not just
5
J6,
videos.
Yeah, have you been following him at all?
Greg?
You'll have to bring me up to speed on what he said. He says so many things it's hard to keep up. So what did he say in particular about J6?
The most recent thing he was talking about was J6, and basically talking about the report that came out about the intelligence of its 26 agents that were on site, and how he basically said, if I can pull it up, I will. I got to prep it.
If I may.
You want to go? You want to go?
No, I can't pull it up, but you can look for it and I'll talk because I watched it several times. He said, I'm sick and tired of basically, he said, I'm sick and tired of the Democrats making the Republicans look like they're the cheaters, they're the schemers, they're the bad guys. And it turns out that it's the Democrats. And I'm tired of everything they say turning out to be a lie. So he was talking about January 6th. He was talking about, several different news stories that had come up. But I said to Kyle earlier today, people like him, Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, even there was somebody else that these people now that I'm not saying they're lying. I don't know, but what do we think? Does anybody else think that this is like for expediency's sake, like for convenience sake, because they can see that the people that are still rigid and hard and fast with like the Russia collusion? Look at George Stephanopoulos. The ABC just had to pay Trump $15 million plus another $1 million for his presidential library. So all this reversal. I know it's pretty funny. So do we think it's true? Do we think it's like for their career? And does it matter? I don't know.
So I'm sorry. I actually did see that clip because I was watching a clip from Kwame Brown. If you don't know who he is, Kwame Brown played in the NBA for like 12 seasons, like from, I think, the maybe late 90s, early 2000s. And he came to the NBA straight out of high school, had just so much hype and so many expectations that he would come in and be great. And he just never lived up to that. So he's been called a bust by everybody you can imagine, which is unfair.
Yeah.
He had a solid career, not a great career. If you manage to play in the NBA 12 years, you got to be doing something.
Yeah.
So he's got his own like podcast that has basically gone viral. He's more or less a conservative, and he's gotten a lot of flack for that. But he was talking about, and Stephen A. may be one of the folks that have called him a bust. I don't know, but a lot of these so-called analysts have basically dismissed his opinions on things that are going on in the NBA today because he didn't have a Hall of Fame career. It's like, but he still knows basketball and he has a right to express his opinion. But he talked about Stephen A. Smith and what he said about J6 and some other things that have come to light, as a result of the election. And I share his opinion that Stephen A., I don't know that he's saying what he's saying with conviction. I think he's just basically putting his finger in his mouth and holding up to see which way the wind blows as far as what the mood of the country is and how he can get more people to listen. Because I feel like even though Stephen A. is saying these things and he's right as far as what these politicians are doing behind the scenes and saying one thing and doing another, he's not going to do anything about it. I guarantee you he in 4 years, he'll vote Democrat again, and he's not going to express outrage during, but he'll express phony outrage after the fact. I think people like him and some other people that delve into talking about politics and what's going on, I think you can tell the ones that are very sincere and genuine about talking about these things and the ones that just talk about it just to get clicks and views. And I think Stephen A., is one of those people. I just can't. It's nice that he's expressing these things as to, hey, this is really rotten what they're doing and we're tired of it, blah, blah, blah. Well, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you use your platform and say, hey, this is what we need to do. If when you go vote, remember that. Not necessarily telling people who to vote for, but say, hey, just remember when they did this and when they did that when you go vote. Then I'll be convinced that he's sincere about these concerns he's talked about. So yeah, I've been listening to Stephen A for years, and I think when he talks about stuff, it's all about Stephen A and getting attention.
And then there was the Micah and Morning Joe. Whatever that was, I don't even. I'm not. Really, somebody like say Megyn Kelly. So Megyn Kelly, she's in the same group, although I would say it's probably been 6 or 8 months that she came around before. And she even spoke at one of the final Trump rallies and all that. But there's a lot of people. And what I think they don't understand is it's really not Trump that everybody is us that have been there the whole time. Yes, we like Donald Trump, but it's about standing up for what's right, what's moral, about lawfare, and it wouldn't matter if it was somebody else instead of Trump. Whatever they did to Trump, but they did it to anybody. I was actually sort of thinking a little bit about voting for DeSantis way back, just because I was so tired of the constant rancor. Even though I do believe that the 2020 election was stolen from him, but when they raided Mar-a-Lago, I was like, that's it. I have no choice. I got, you got to stand with the one that's getting treated unfairly. At least I always go for the underdog, and this was an outrage. So all these Johnny-come-latelys, I'm skeptical. Cenk Uygur is one of the big ones because I think he's a dishonest person to begin with.
He is dishonest.
But he was on Trigonometry. I don't know if you watch that podcast. I watch it sometimes. And that was like 2 weeks before the election. He's a fascist. He's a blah. And now he's making all the rounds.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm a populist. And it's like, you were never a populist. Once again, luckily, I don't have to worry about it. I live in my own corner of the world. What were you think, Kyle? Because it's those two, but there's probably even more that I can't think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah, those are the two that come to mind. Actually, Anna Kasparian. I think maybe she's the one that's probably the most genuine.
Actually, I think she might be a little genuine because she actually started, I think it was the Me Too, or it was something to do with women. I can't remember what it was, but that started with her like a year ago.
Oh, really? What are you talking about with the homeless people who tried to assault her?
Before that, even it was something to do with something about Me Too being phony. I'll think of it, but that's
remember that, Greg. Anna Kasparian?
It wasn't really political when she started coming around.
Yeah, I actually don't recall that. That's new to me.
Well, she was on Young Turks, the whole, anyway, she was just like the rest of them. Her and Shank are really good friends. And she was accosted by some homeless people. She's walking her dog and she felt threatened. And then she told people about it. And then she was attacked because they were thinking that she was actually going after the homeless people, even though she was the one who was the victim. So
I know, excuse me, but it was something to do with the trans men saying they're women. That's what started her. And that's when she got the first heat.
Okay.
Right? That was like a year ago.
Okay. Well, then you had Jill from Jillian Michaels from Biggest Loser. She's another one. And really everyone on Trump's staff. I mean, RFK has been harassed. Tulsi Gabbard's been harassed, been followed. Kash Patel's been debugged. And I mean, everyone that he has on his cabinet pretty much. Even the other guy who got from Florida, who backed out of the Gates. Everybody has been, they have axe to grind. So, even Elon Musk, his son, just things that happen to him online, but people are attacking him. You name it.
And so, does everybody agree? Which I've always said, Mike Johnson was a bum. He's always been a bum. I knew he was going to be a bum.
Yeah, he's still disappointing. And here's the thing. So the 30s, how many people voted against it? 38?
Well,
38.
Yeah.
It was 38.
Now, so now I get it what they're saying, but they should not be attacking Trump for putting together something at the last minute. They need to be attacking Johnson for having 86 days to do this piece of crap bill. And that's what they should be attacking. Now, if you want to say, I can't vote for this because the spending is this, I get that. You're trying to be principled, the ceiling. I get it. It's bad optics for you. You got to defend yourself. I would have voted for it because I didn't want to go against Trump because I'm, That's what I would have done.
I saw Steve Bannon on Megyn Kelly, just a little clip, and he said that Mike Johnson was making deals with Hakeem Jeffries and a lot of Democrats for all that pork stuff and lying, or at least being dishonest to Elon and Vivek and Donald Trump, and like, no, we got it. But meanwhile, telling them, don't worry, we got it. Like his pants got pulled down big time with this. And I think that's the end of it. Because I really just displayed his true, like, I don't understand what people in Washington, don't you get it? Don't you see what's happening? Like, you really think this is going to be business as usual? Because I think it's over.
It'd be one thing if it was just the spending, but then you have other stuff in their provisions to protect people against crimes.
The football stadium for DC? No.
That was there too?
Yes. And also to keep that not World Health Organization, but that One World Vision, fund millions to fund them for another year, more pandemic restrictions. Like, there's so much in there. Like,
isn't there something in there about raises for themselves or something like that?
Yes, raises for Congress, and also to get them into the federal employee health program after they retire, which is millions of dollars and a sweet, sweet deal that they don't deserve.
Unbelievable. Does anybody know who
amazing
Sam Applin is?
No, I saw. What was that comment? Because I saw that, but I don't know who that is.
I don't know if it's a troll or if it's a real person. I tried to find it.
I wonder if that's the guy the one Democrat that. Hang on a second. Let me look him up.
I didn't bring it up earlier because it wasn't on topic, but this now, since we're getting into the political realm.
Yeah, I don't know. This maybe I don't think it's a troll, but it says that Sam Applin is an artist and a fighter. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. I wasn't sure. So I didn't want to be like the bartender in Simpsons, is you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Mo.
Oh.
Yeah. I didn't want to, say something that was going to be, genetically wrong.
Anyway. And the prank calls from Bart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy online, So I was like, let me vet this question first. Anyway, well, thanks, Grace. If you want to talk more about that in the comments, let us know what your who this person is or what your thoughts are. I'd be curious. Is this person a centrist? Is it a leftist? What is he, or is it a girl? Is it a girl?
There's one that says it's a man that's a fighter, but then there's also a girl with she looks like she's Indian, and it's she's an artist.
I saw that too, so I didn't know. That's why I don't know. So anyway, well, I'm probably called this live stream early. I mean, there's no more people entering, so I'm not going to just have a contest. Just have a contest. But so anything you guys about Christmas that you really are excited about, or this new year that you're excited about? You've already mentioned what you said, Jackie, in terms of being nice, right? But do we think this year? Do we think in the first 100 days? Let's put it this way. Let's frame it this way. Do you think in the first 100 days that Trump will be able to get a lot done? And we know executive order he can do that, but do you think he's going to have any significant legislation?
I hope not, because I think that you better let's get in there and let's get entrenched. Let's get situated. I mean, I wouldn't want to go in because you might be even not. I think what they need to do is burst the pimple first, like squeeze the abscess. Get flip what you got to flip at the FBI, flip what you got to flip at the CIA. I wouldn't. Yeah. I personally don't think you should worry about making legislation. I think you got to get your people in there and let them really assess where the things need to be cut and where the abscess needs to be drained. Let's break up Washington, D.C., move those departments out of there, get rid of the buildings that we're paying for that we don't even use. Oh, get the federal employees back to work in the office or get them another job, or they can get another job. There's a lot that needs to be straightened out before you could start building. You know what I mean? I think you got to level.
Yeah. That's probably good. What do you think, Greg?
I agree. I think the first time he was in office, when he did all of those things right out of the gate, he certainly had the media working against him to basically downplay all of what he did. But I think this time around, you know, now that the media, mainstream media, has realized that the American public doesn't trust him, doesn't need him, they may play a little nicer this time around, and you know, perhaps be a little bit more fair as far as how they represent what Trump's doing. Now, I'm not saying they're going to all be his pals now, but I'm a little bit more optimistic as to how this go around will be presented, because some of them grudgingly admitted, yeah, this is a great comeback story. Yeah, this is impressive as far as what Trump was able to do. And, you know, that even he is a little different this time around, especially the way he's been able to bring a lot of different groups of people together to, you know, vote for him and get him in there and hopefully get his agenda going. So, yeah, I think he should go in there and, you know, do the best he can as far as getting the people out of there that are, you know, are going to be roadblocks for him to get anything done, because he has a mandate. I mean, he just does. He won the popular vote and he overwhelmingly won the electoral vote. So get all the people out of the way that are trying to hinder him and get down to the business of doing what we elected him to do.
Agree. Well, us three agree. So that's the mandate right there.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
That's right.
I think it would be nice to have a new speaker, though. That would be nice.
And one that's on our actual team and is not same old business Washington, D.C. guy. We need somebody fresh.
Because that's a big deal, man.
Impressed with him at all.
Me neither.
You know,
I didn't like him when they picked him.
Yeah, I wish somebody like, you know, Jim Jordan or Trey Gowdy or somebody like that would do it, but you know, unfortunately,
Gowdy's out, and Jim Jordan. But also, I like Devin Nunes, and I think he just got fed up and left the whole system too. I liked him when he was in the Congress or the Senate from California. I forget which.
Yeah, man, the speaker is so powerful. I mean, they can determine the entire agenda. They can determine what comes in the committee, out of committee. They can set the rules. They can make it hell for the president.
Oh, the other thing I thought was kind of funny is all these stories are tumbling out now about how decompensated Joe Biden has been for the last 4 years. But once again, when he was in the basement in 2019, I'm a nurse, but I'm not the only nurse in the world. I'm not the only doctor in the world. And we all knew then it was
everybody knew. Oh, yeah.
You reminded me. You reminded me of something, Jackie. I'm sorry to cut you off, but this trivia question is for you. We can talk about Biden. I didn't want to skip over you. I don't forget to put this out there, but this is for you, Jackie. This is trivia question number 5, Christmas trivia. World War I, the Red Cross sent Christmas care packages to U.S. soldiers overseas, reinforcing America's support for its troops. The Red Cross. Jackie, so go on with your Joe Biden, if you want to continue.
I said, I'm just saying that it was obvious then that he was, actually, even when he was still with Barack Obama, when he was the vice president, you remember how he used to say like dumb stuff all the time? And even Barack Obama said, never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F things up. Remember that?
Yes.
And
yep.
And he just looked awful. And he said, you could just see. And so many of the things that, the way that he, when he gets, he'd be like talking, and then all of a sudden he'd be like furious. Like that's a really common thing that you see in dementia.
Okay.
And the whispering, the leaning over, and the whispering. And then, of course, the inappropriate stuff. I mean, it was just so obvious. And then they gave him a little nip and tuck.
Yep, I saw that.
And they Botoxed him up. I mean, but it was such a sham. And then the hiding in the basement. He couldn't take a question in 2019. Well, he couldn't take a question in 2021.
Yeah.
It was just so ridiculous. So anyway, all these little stories are coming about how horrible, how little of a presence he's actually had in the presidency. which is another that works out good for us because if you notice, Trump's team is just sort of moving in and taking over and just doing a lot of stuff, which if there was a strong president in place, we wouldn't be able to get that early start.
De facto, exactly.
But how great was it when Jill Biden was with Trump in France? It was so obvious. And then she wore red, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't blame her, though. Honestly, if I were the Bidens, I'd be doing the same doggone thing. Well, I would never be the Bidens, but you know what I mean? Like they don't have any loyalty to what?
Well, they don't like her from back in the election, the primary, when she called him out for segregation. Remember that? A few years back. And
you mean that? Tulsi.
No.
Oh yeah, she called him a racist for school buses or something.
Yes. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. She most certainly did. And then when she was asked about it later, it was a debate. It's like, but you called him a racist. It's just a debate.
I call a lot of people a lot of things.
Right.
Nothing to worry about. I was drunk.
Oh, me.
Oh, me.
But yeah. Well, I think, and I don't know if either of you have seen reports. I think they've been on X and maybe some other places about how Jill and Joe stopped whatever it was they were doing, vacation or whatever, and headed back to the White House, and Kamala ended her vacation in California or wherever she is and headed back to the White House. Of course, that prompted a whole lot of speculation as to, what's going on. I don't know if any of it's true or not, but
I saw that come across the screen, but I never know if anything is, baloney or truth.
Yeah, it's hard to tell anymore. And of course, there were that ramped up speculations about, maybe they're going to push Joe out and, hand it over to Kamala so she can actually be the first woman president. And on her way out, pardon Joe Biden. I don't know if any of that's true or not. But if you're a conspiracy theorist and you look at what we just talked about, how now the mainstream media is finally admitting it's like, oh gosh, well, he's really been asleep at the wheel for the last 4 years, and his people have really covered up big time for him. And, so that ramps up speculation even further. I don't know if there's anything to any of that as far as, them rushing back to the White House, but it makes you wonder. I do know that the media was complicit in all of that. I mean, they wouldn't ask him hard questions, and they just went along with it. Oh, Joe Biden's fantastic. He's as sharp as a tack. Sharp as a tack.
Worst tack ever. But wait, was I just gonna say something you said? Oh, the big joke on some podcasts I was watching, and they're right. If they make Kamala the first woman president, do you know
Hillary?
Yeah, baby. You're going to hear a giant scream go out across New York State, and it's going to be Hillary, like so furious.
She's going to be throwing stuff again, yeah.
She's a maniac anyway.
Yeah, that's why I'm hesitant to buy any 47 stuff because he could be 48. Yeah.
But that's true. But I'm just wondering, why did they get called back? And I don't think they would do anything to as a favor to Joe Biden. So
could be the shutdown.
Or could be I don't think Joe Biden is aware of the shutdown or has any ability to affect the shutdown.
Right, of course.
But it's all very interesting. But really, who knows what's going on is Barack Obama. He's the master puppeteer, baby.
He's the one that has legacy is the most at risk.
Damaged, really. I think it's damaged, don't you?
It's very damaged right now. So, and really, it could come back. It could blow back on him. Actually, some of this stuff.
I still want to know what happened to the chef. Let's go back to that. We want to know what happened to the chef.
He drowned. What is it? He drowned.
He was a swimmer.
Was he a swimmer? Yeah, he was a great swimmer. So that's very suspicious.
There's something going on there, unless the Clintons had him killed.
Dude, We got to talk offline, man. Jack, you should. I'm going to see you anyway, Christmas anyway, right?
Yeah.
Maybe before Christmas. We're gonna remind me of this conversation. We'll talk about. I'm reading a book right now on the Clintons. It's incredible.
Was it written by Larry Sinclair?
No, it's actually written by. Oh man, it's called A Game of Thrones. No, Game of Thorns. Game of Thorns. You can find it on Amazon. I'll pull it up real quick, but it's basically the story of the election. What happened the night of 2016? That Hillary just went crazy, and it goes into the history of Hillary and how and why all this started. It was all opposition research for her husband as governor of Arkansas, doing what he was doing. So what she would do is she would get fax machines lined up where any person, they would call it like the bimbo of the month, whatever they would call it internally.
Oh.
So whenever this person comes over, you know the story?
No, but they were just talking about George Stephanopoulos being in charge of the bimbo. It was called the bimbo something, the bimbo explosion or bimbo of the day or something like that.
Exactly. And so they would fax people out, get ahead of the story, fax stuff out, whatever, and create the narrative so that they could protect their candidate, in her case, her husband.
Who wrote the Game of Thrones or Thorns?
I'm gonna pull it up real quick. It's Game of Thorns, actually. Let me see. I have it on audio if you want it. You want it? I have an audio.
No, I just was curious who wrote it.
Let's see. Game of.
It reminds me of Primary Colors. Do you remember that book?
I watched that 2 days ago again for the 5th time. I'm watching a lot of political movies now just because I can. Because when Trump quote unquote lost, I didn't do anything political. I didn't go to the White House comedy anymore. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything political. Now I'm watching all kind of documentaries, all kind of stuff because I can now. I feel better about it. You know what I mean? So that's written by, gosh, where is it? Doug Weed.
I wonder who is that his real name?
Well, I don't know actually if it's real name or not.
You know, because if I remember Primary Color, well, a lot of times when people are still in the biz, they use it's really written by somebody else.
Right, of course, yeah, because they protect their, like, what's that? Benjamin Franklin, Doolittle, do good.
I don't know.
Benjamin Franklin did a assumed name in his career as he wrote these letters.
Oh yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
So there it is. It's definitely worth reading or listening to.
I'm gonna look into that.
Like I said, if you want it, I can let you borrow my audio.
I actually listened to a real good audiobook about the Clintons, and it was by one of their Secret Service detail.
Oh wow!
It's called A Crisis of Character.
I'm buying that tomorrow.
What's
it called?
Crisis of Character by Gary J. Byrne, and it was excellent. And he talks about all the Lewinsky stuff and day-to-day dealings with Bill Clinton as opposed to Hillary, and just how mean and nasty she was. How you couldn't greet her, you couldn't say good morning, Mrs. Clinton or anything. She said that she would just curse people out and was just real mean, and basically treated the Secret Service like her own personal servants. Come hold the umbrella for me, come carry my suitcase and all this other stuff. So what you see on camera, I mean, that's pretty much her. I mean, she's just very unlikable, very mean, very nasty. And this book is a lot of behind the scenes of how he is kind of conflicted as far as, okay, I'm supposed to protect the president, but to what lengths am I supposed to protect him with all of that scandalous stuff going on at the time? So yeah, it was really, really good. I know you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm adding to the cart. I won't do it online because people get my credit card information.
I saw that guy on a talk show, and he seemed very sincere. And she is horrible.
Real good. Yeah, everything I've heard about her has been not flattering. So I heard an interview from which girlfriend was it? There's so many. one of them.
Jennifer Flowers.
It might have been Jennifer Flowers, and she was talking about, or Juanita Broderick. One of the two.
Yeah.
So she was talking about Bill Clinton in the early days, and how when he introduced her to Hillary, and how, I don't know if they were just boyfriend and girlfriend or if they were engaged or what, and introduced Hillary to her. And she's like, I couldn't believe it's like, and knowing Bill Clinton, what in the world do you see in her? Because said back then they were like hippies. So, Hillary had on the real thick glasses and the long stringy hair. And she's like, she was just not impressive, and, said she had greasy hair and all of that. But she said that, they both, even back then, had a plan that they were going to, climb the ranks politically. And that's mainly what Bill Clinton had her for.
Yeah.
For that, it's like a package deal. I think in the book I just told you about, I think they mentioned how the plan was, well, it's going to be Bill and Hill. You're going to get Bill Clinton as president first, and then you're going to get her next. And I think when he ran, he all as much said, well, we're a package deal. You get me, you get her. And
he did too.
Yeah. And he probably should be glad that people didn't know as much about her as they do now. Otherwise, who knows? He might not have gotten elected. I don't know. But yeah, that was their thing. Their relationship, from everything I've seen and heard, is more business than anything else, as far as, political gain and all that stuff. So
yeah, she was the first lady to get an office in the West Wing. Typically, the first lady is in the East Wing, all the way across the residence, all the way across. You can, is as far removed from the president as possible. But no, Hillary had an office in the West Wing, I believe. That's the first time it's ever happened.
It's very interesting to think about. Bill is so likable in person, yes. That's what everybody says. And so, and obviously she's not. So would he have gotten to where he is? I feel like she's the one that does a lot of the dirty business and cuts the throats.
He wouldn't have done it. He couldn't have done it.
So would he be where he was, or have gotten to where he was, if it wasn't for her?
No, they needed each other. That's for sure. And they knew it. He couldn't have gotten there without her, and she certainly couldn't have gotten there without him, because to your point, he's very personable, very likable, and she isn't. But on the other hand, I think she's more ruthless than he is, I think. So
I think he couldn't be bothered. Plus his attention was diverted elsewhere most of the time, most of his adult life.
A lot of elsewhere, yeah.
Up here. So, people like that aren't usually successful. If she hadn't been driving the boat, he would have capsized somewhere.
Yeah, that I put on here that American Crime Story, this particular season, was dealing with the Monica Lewinsky. It was very interesting to see that. Of course, it's just drama. I'm sure they've exaggerated things here, but I'm sure some things weren't as exaggerated as some people like to think.
And along those lines, that poor girl that had to go hide in Russia that was sexually assaulted by Joe Biden, is she going to be allowed to come back to America now? That woman, you must have seen that woman, that she had that case where she said that Joe Biden, years ago assaulted her sexually. And it was pretty graphic. And she went on some talk shows and stuff. And then she had to go to Russia to hide out because there were so many threats on her life.
Was it?
Either of you guys know that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was it? Let me see. I'm looking her up now.
I don't know that I've heard that.
Oh my goodness.
Tara Reid?
Yeah. And here's the interesting thing about the story. Did you see where when this happened, I can't remember what talk show it was, but her mother called into a talk show. I'll look it up in 1 second, but her mother called into a talk show to say that her daughter had been assaulted by a senator in Washington. And what did they do about it? And you can still see the clip. And actually her mother's passed away since then. But everybody sort of looks at that as kind of proof that probably definitely happened. And I think it did. But she's been in Russia for like 2.5 years.
Yeah, she is.
Hopefully she can get back out. And also I'd like to see Julian Assange get pardoned completely. And also I'd like to see Mike Pompeo disappear.
Yeah. What's the deal with Assange? I mean, why didn't Trump pardon him the first time?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you. First of all, Mike Pompeo had such a, I don't know how to, like a bee in his bonnet about Julian Assange. And he wanted to kill him. He was so mad because the CIA the military got their pants pulled down by Julian Assange. And Trump wanted to pardon him. And from what I heard is that Pompeo put the kibosh on it because he thought he was going to finish him off. And instead, but don't forget, people are talking, like I keep getting these texts, these fundraising texts, and I get every once in a while, ones come from Mike Pompeo, and I'm like, you lying thief, don't ever text my number again. And it's really funny because they must read it because then I get that. Subscribe. So if they ever get on your nerves, you can tell them what for. But when Trump was assassinated that weekend, remember that was right before the convention?
Oh, I remember that was yesterday.
Right. Well,
I remember where I was standing
when I called you guys and told
in my house. Yeah, I remember exactly where I was standing by my record machine.
But listen,
yeah, go ahead.
At that convention, Pompeo went there early, and he told, I'm pretty sure, I think it was either the Missouri or the Michigan caucus, that he was going to be the nominee with Nikki Haley. And I heard that either on Megyn Kelly, like somebody it wasn't like the National Enquirer. And I'm assuming if I heard about it, that Donald Trump and his team heard about it, but that guy is no good.
The backlash that happened when they thought that he could be on the ticket or the cabinet, people went crazy.
I know, and they should have, because I look at, did you see how Bill Barr was the one that was behind that whole Fannie Willis, that whole case? That was Bill Barr.
Oh man.
Who I've hated since, remember when they went out by the church when the thing was, when Black Lives Matter burned
they
down.
tried to burn the church down, yeah.
Bill Barr, made some, Bill Barr's father is the one that hired Jeffrey Epstein at that Dalton school in New York City. Oh my goodness. His father, who worked for the CIA, interviewed Jeffrey Epstein, who only had, I don't even think he had a bachelor's degree, and hired him to be a teacher at one of the most prestigious schools in New York City with no teaching experience. That was Bill Barr's father, who also has written novels with rape in them. Just in case you didn't know about that. The whole family's rotten.
I'm looking forward to Kash Patel declassifying some of these things.
Oh, me too. We're going to be, we have to have we'll have 3-day online things going over these documents.
I mean, unredacted. I mean, come on.
It's going to be good. We weren't going to talk about politics, but somehow we slipped into it.
It's hard not to.
I know. But isn't it nice to be able to smile and laugh about stuff?
Yes.
Well, I can go through the rest of these last trivias if you like, and then we can call it a wrap. It's just interesting stuff. Like in 23, Calvin Coolidge lit the first national Christmas tree.
Symbolizing unity and peace, which we still have today.
Exactly. I didn't write this stuff. Weeks after Pearl Harbor, which, by the way, was in December, FDR and Churchill gave a Christmas broadcast. Oh yeah, there's a good story behind Churchill and FDR. They had Christmas together that year. Churchill came in on the secrecy, got to the White House, walked around stark naked the entire time. It's crazy stories happening to him, FDR. They just hung out for the Christmas holiday. So,
was he like Netanyahu and brought all his dirty clothes for the White House to wash his clothes for him?
Probably. I mean, Churchill was crazy, man.
I know, but there's certain things I know people say there's, especially now, a lot of bad things come out about him. But
oh yeah, well, our friend we know in common doesn't like him at all. But I don't know much about him. But I respect.
There's people on the left that have been talking about a lot of negative things about him, like he was racist and racist, as Ben Shapiro says. He's a racist.
For you moon enthusiasts, Apollo 8 orbited the moon on Christmas Eve of 1968, reading Genesis. And that probably, I heard that made people mad too, even back then. reading Genesis.
You should have read Luke, something about the birth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that reminds me. So, I've been talking to my Sunday school class about, I think it might have been the last lesson or two. And one of the questions in our lesson was, what's one of your favorite Christmas movies? And I know, A Charlie Brown Christmas isn't technically a movie, but it's one of my favorites. And it came out in 1965. And even back then, CBS was very squirmish about Linus declaring what the true meaning of Christmas is, and the angels' announcement to the shepherds. But to me, that's the absolute best part of that whole cartoon. And my youngest daughter had told me, "Well, I've never seen that," which is shocking because I watched it just about every year since I was a kid. So we sat down and watched it together, and she was just so impressed with how well it was done and how, it basically talked about how the focus was just on all the wrong things, like, a lot like today, the commercialism and all of that stuff. But it was just so neat how Charles Schultz stuck to his guns and said, yeah, it stays in.
I'm so
and I'm glad he did. Yeah, I'm very glad he did. So yeah, I love watching it. I enjoyed it when I watched it the other night. It's just one of the all-time great Christmas programs that's ever been made.
I agree with you.
I think he told him, he said, look, you can air it or not air it, but I'm not taking the jazz out. I'm not taking out the
Yeah.
And they aired it. They were going to do it one time and do it because they spent money. Took 8 months to make it. They said, well, we'll just play it one time and be done with it.
But it was such a big hit. They played it every year.
I think it's still, I think actually Peanut stuff is another real good reseller item, but I think that's still popular.
Oh, Gen X, man. That's all awesome, man. We love that. And baby boomers too, older baby boomers. Or younger baby boomers, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say younger. There's a fine line between Gen X and that baby boomer margin's too wide, even for me. Because you could be born in, I forget when it starts, like 1980,
I believe.
No, baby boomers. It ends in 65.
I'm sorry.
It ends in 65, but I think it started in like 50, and there's a big difference.
Yeah. You have the Korean War.
Actually. That's two different worlds.
The laying of the Christmas tree started in 92 at Arlington Cemetery. I didn't realize that's kind of recent.
I thought it was more recent than that, actually, because that's another thing. I must have donated to them because they gave me like 400 texts on the 15th to donate again for more wreaths.
That's a huge effort that they do.
And it's across it's not just Arlington Cemetery. Yeah. They laid those wreaths all across the country at different military.
How do they do it? I mean, the logistics.
Well, it's a bit, but probably not every graveyard gets a group to do it, but they try to get somebody to lay wreaths on all the military cemeteries.
Greg, you have anyone in your family, military, who's passed, veteran?
Who has passed? I've got a few in my family that have served, and my wife's family as well. So we certainly can appreciate the sacrifice of all of those who have served that are still with us, and those that aren't. I think it can't be overstated as far as what type of sacrifice all of those who have served made for us, because especially this time of year when they can't be at home and they're far away, and their accommodations aren't as cozy and comfortable as ours. So it just means a lot, and I don't think we can ever thank them enough for the sacrifice that they make for us every day. So.
Hey, Jackie, how about Kamala talking about there's no one overseas or in war?
Oh gosh!
And they're like that video.
You see all those clips of the guys are like, "What are we doing here?"
Exactly.
But you know what? Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I think a lot of the general public aren't sharp enough and don't care enough to realize how terrible the vice president of our country, not knowing that we have people in active war zones, like what a big deal that is. And they're like, oh, but wait, say it to my face. Remember she had that line at the beginning, like they're all focused on that. And I'm like,
yeah. She's so strong. She's so
about
brat.
Trump. She doesn't know that we have people in active war zones. She's the vice president.
She's so brat, though.
Yeah. I think some of it is she doesn't care. And that's the thing. It's and we talked about this election night, how her staff has said she doesn't study, she doesn't like to prepare, she doesn't like putting in the work, and that's an example of it. Her not knowing or not caring to know that we do indeed have soldiers overseas in harm's way. So yeah, she's absolutely horrible. And she, like Hillary, she's blaming everybody but herself for losing.
And asking for more money from the donors.
Yes, that.
How much money did she raise? 1.4
billion. And she spent that and 20 million more on top of it. And she's still hitting up donors for money.
But can you imagine the pork? Can you imagine the flow of that money for every private flights, probably top shelf champagne?
They were living great, man.
Tip top hotels.
Putting her face on the Sphere in Vegas and paying all these entertainers to perform, or in Beyonce's case, not perform.
Or how about that hooker talk show she went on? Call Her Daddy?
Oh, that was really tacky.
How shameful.
Awful.
Oh, my word. And a couple other ones that she was on there, just such lowbrow, trashy. Good Lord. Even the girl from Call Her Daddy was mad because she's like, my set was fine. I don't know what they spent $200,000 on. She was very irate that she got slammed for that $100,000 set. You know, when a hooker rebukes you, you better take a look. You better take an inventory.
It's hard to come back from that.
Yeah.
All right. Here's my last trivia. This is an interesting one. In 1944, U.S. troops held Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge, embodying resilience and American fighting spirit. Now, the people who were there said they didn't need Patton to come. They are mad about that Patton saved them. They don't like that narrative, but the narrative is that Patton came in to help them out. But that was a huge deal there because Hitler and the Nazis were trying to break through, and they almost did. And that could have been another year of war, really, because they'd be able to do that. But Allies pushed them back in the snow, and that was in them Nazi Germany at that point. That was their last gasp.
And thank God for that.
Yeah, I mean, they were going to lose anyway, but it could have been another year of long, more bloody war if they were able to get that.
And more people dead.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much all I had. I had one more thing I can do, but I'm not going to do it. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
No, I think I'm going to go start my Christmas cards. What is it, 10:30? I got a half hour. I can knock them out real quick.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I got your Christmas gift. I got to wrap it. I'm looking right at it. Actually, right now, I'm looking at your gift.
All right. Make it good.
Yeah, it's good. You like it.
I think you're going to like yours too. That's one thing I really enjoy with my yard sales and my thrifting. I come across the most interesting things.
That's true.
And if I know what their hobbies are, what their interests are, it makes it real easy. By the way, just real briefly, my cleaning lady's mother invited me up to her house because she had some old vintage stuff and she wanted to see if I could take a look. And I turned my head, and what do I see? But two mannequins, one with a Confederate uniform complete and one with a...
No way.
Well, wait. So I was like, what's that? Her husband was a reenactor, and apparently when some days you're on the north and some days you're on the south.
You got to buy. Yeah. That's true.
So he did it for years. He's from Massachusetts, but his wife, who's from North Carolina, said he was here like a year and he got involved with that. And he said, honey, I think those damn Yankees done us wrong. after getting involved with studying the Civil War. So I thought that was kind of interesting because he's a very active Democratic type of a gentleman, but now he has a different opinion after getting involved with the Civil War. But I thought someday I'll have him over for coffee, and as long as we don't talk about DJT, you probably could have a very interesting conversation.
Oh, he's one of those guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's I can go on tangent here, but there's a good debate with a person who is a Civil War expert versus a Richmond or a Thomas Jefferson expert, and they talk about the hypocrisy in their belief systems, and talking about the left versus the right versus do you have states' rights, or do you go ahead and buy a third of the country with the Louisiana Purchase? It's like this is a debate that there's no answer to. It's really fascinating.
Well, it is very fascinating, and
there's no answer to any of this stuff philosophically, and
I know we're winding down, and I don't want to open up this can of worms, but I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks. What's the difference between the immorality of owning slaves for financial gain and lying about a vaccine for financial gain, or doing many other things that till today, 2024, big companies do that are highly immoral, and we find out about it all the time? So in other words, I just think like man's tendency to do things for money has never changed and did not change since the Garden of Eden. You know what I mean? Like there's really no difference. And you could say, well, we're much better now. We would never own slaves. Yeah, but you injured and maimed millions of people with what?
Yeah.
So what's the difference? Who's more moral? Neither.
Yeah, I'm reading a book called Dragon Slayer by Larry Schweikart. I'm almost done. It's basically the battle of 6 presidents and the war with their respective swamps. The first one is Lincoln, and he dealt with the slave swamp and how the various swamps morphed into other things. So it was the slave swamp moved into the spoil swamp, or patronage, basically giving your buddies jobs. That when that broke down with Teddy Roosevelt, then it went into the trust swamp. I'm sorry, that was Coolidge. I mean, that was Grover Cleveland. Then it goes into the trust swamp with Roosevelt, and it rolls into the industrial complex swamp, JFK, and rolls into what we were in the call we have now. But it rolls and goes through different things, and through good measures, like Rockefeller didn't mean to create the swamps, the trust swamp, but he was forced into because he was being attacked because he's making money, and he had to do something. But he had good intentions, but the guys after Rockefeller didn't have good intentions, and it just created a huge plethora of problems. So it's really interesting. It's really interesting.
Butler wrote that book, War is a Racket, and he realized, even though he was a highly decorated Marine, he was being sent to countries to do stuff to clear the way for industrialism to come from rich American companies, like in the Panama Canal and stuff. But I mean, immorality has been since time immemorial. Mammon, right? Isn't that what they call that? Thirst for money, or I think it's called mammon. Well, anyway, it's no different. It hasn't changed, not one bit.
There's the book you want to check it out. I had that as well in audio if you want to borrow it.
I do want to hear that, actually.
It's fantastic. So,
all right,
Greg, you got anything to say? You want to close this out? Well, first of all, it's always a pleasure to chat with the two of you. It's nice to be able to talk about a variety of topics, especially politics, because you can't talk about politics with just anyone, can you? So,
no, you can't.
So it's a relief and refreshing to be able to discuss it intelligently with you two. But I wish you both a very Merry Christmas. God bless you and your families, and hopefully it's a happy and safe one. And looking forward to a great year next year. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Greg. You too.
Thanks, Greg. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
And Jackie, I'll see you when am I going to your house? Where is it?
No, I think I'm going to see you on Christmas Day at your in-laws.
Oh yeah. Okay. I thought we were going to be your house before that, though. I thought we were going to go Christmas Eve.
That's to your in-laws again, I think, as far as I know.
But
y'all are welcome anytime. After today, my house will be in perfect Christmas order. I got spode china, Christmas tree out, and everything.
Well, I can bring you a gift now because one of your gifts because it's highly time sensitive.
All right. All right.
Anyway.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks, Greg. I always enjoy speaking with you.
Thank you. Take care. And everybody that's still on, take care.
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you.
Sure. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on the Conservative Take. That was Jackie and Greg, and we're gonna call it a wrap. A little early, but I think 3.5 hours is probably long enough. So hope everyone enjoys their rest of their evening. Look for that video for the rest of my discussion with Nicole. That will go up later this evening as well, and you can hear the rest of that discussion. It's a fascinating discussion. Nicole is super smart, and she adds so much from a common sense and from a use case standpoint in terms of what she says. It's something that we can take and use and apply to our lives. So anyway, I am done. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everybody, and I will see everyone in the next one. God bless.